This is the story of a MC who single-handedly destroyed an entire kingdom. He accomplished all his goals, and when there was nothing left in life, he decided to peace out. But after his death, instead of going straight to the afterlife, he went back to when he was 14 years old, a time when everyone bullied him and he was considered an S-grade loser. But now Jack has the full experience of his previous life. This time, he's going to change everything. He wants to take revenge on everyone who wronged him. So, will anything change in this second run? Let's go. You know? The moment where it all began. It's a full moon night, and according to our protagonist, when one turns 34, one feels like looking back on life. He sits on that hellish battlefield, wondering where he went wrong. Wounded and exhausted, he fights on and moves on. The only wish in his mind is that he wishes he had a budget Excalibur so he could save his sister from being handed over to the Empire. He sits down, exhausted and broken. He thinks, maybe I wouldn't have become that monster if it weren't for that. If he hadn't, he wouldn't have met his master. The same master who taught him everything when he was a level 1 noob. Jack wishes he had been a better student. But now it's too late. He knows he didn't want all this to happen. Lost in these thoughts, a boy approaches him. No friendly fellow came to play with them. He's trembling with his sword. Jack realizes that perhaps his end will come at the hands of a child. The boy says, "You're the one who killed my father," and then calls him a monster. But Jack doesn't care about that word anymore. He just thinks, "Tell me something new, brother. I'm fed up of hearing all this monster." Although his body is full of wounds, Jack pushes himself once again. He has even destroyed an empire. But this insult eats him from within. The boy becomes even more scared. But this interaction reminds Jack of his old days. He asks the boy his name. "What's your name?" The boy replies, "Jack Sturd." Jack is shocked to hear this because my name is Jack too. The boy says that Jack killed his father, but Jack's kill list is so long that no one can tell him. Sturt doesn't even remember. The boy starts crying. "I needed my father. He wasn't good, but he was there." Jack burns inside. "You needed your father. I never had one." Yet he doesn't apologize. Instead, he gives the boy an option. "Kill me." Little Jack panics. His heart starts pounding. "If I do this, I'll be called a monster slayer." But Monster Jack knows he can regenerate and escape. But not today. Little Jack comes forward but then falls to his knees. The sword drops from his hand. He just bursts into tears. "Jack," he looks at him. "You did well. You'll regret it later. People will call you a hero in the beginning, but then they'll drive you crazy." Jack explains to him, "Don't live a life of regret, like I did." Little Jack starts crying even more, and Monster Jack too. Maybe it's a Jack thing. Finally, the monster declares himself dead. The war is over. But little Jack wonders, why did he shed so much blood despite having so much power? But Jack himself doesn't have the answer. He sways, falls, and dies. Without explaining anything, his senses slowly fade. He leaves. But at the last moment, a thought comes to his mind. If I could go back, could I change the course of my life? And then Jack bites the dust. But now let's find out what he was like before, because this MC was the most unlucky protagonist of fate. Jack's father hated him. Why? There was no reason for this, and his mother died the day he was born. He never saw his mother. He only knew what she looked like through a portrait. Jack had 2 siblings. The eldest was his sister, who was very beautiful, and his elder brother was Bossed. Jack's full name was Jack Valtier, and he was so fed up with his unfortunate family that he even abandoned his name. Revenge became his goal, and he wiped out the entire bloodline of the Thulan Empire. Yet, he remained unstoppable. The conquest continued, and when each goal was accomplished, he embraced death. But now, it seems, someone has factory reset him. Looking at himself, he wonders, is this some kind of magic? House Valtier was a noble family of the Thin Kingdom, loyal to the royal family. Jack was the youngest of 3 siblings. the son of a Marcos, until he, as long as he didn't dream big, like becoming the head of the family, he was allowed to live comfortably. But House Veltier was no ordinary home. Jack spent most of his time in the Rose Garden, an isolated villa that sounded nice, but was actually a place in exile. That villa was synonymous with loneliness. Sitting there on a platform, Jack is lost in his thoughts. Just then, his only servant, Ron, arrives. The same Ron who was his butler, servant, and perhaps his only true family. Ron offers him a drink. Jack jokes, "Is there poison in this?" Ron laughs. "Probably not." Jack knows Ron is shady. Still, he's grateful for his service. Ron smiles and leaves. There are 11 people in the Rose Garden besides Jack. One is Ron, and the other 10 are random NPC guards. Jack doesn't care about them. His question is something else. "What should I do now?" He says calmly, but his mind is confused. Is all this true? I'm not even a time traveler. He's only 14 years old. He doesn't have any collars or a mana, which means he's still a weakling. Just then, someone comes and hits him hard on the head. Jack is startled. He clutches his head in pain. This has happened in years. He was feeling physical pain. And on top of that, his fresh Toto juice was ruined. He looked around angrily. In front of him was his older brother, Fawn Veltier, the same one who said, "Why didn't you greet your older brother?" Jack looked at him with hatred. This was the same man whose threats had prevented Jack from ever being able to train in mana. Now Jack was burning inside. He stood up. He wasn't afraid anymore. Memories came flooding back. When Fawn had thrown tea on him, called him useless, threatened him, "If you learned magic or swordsmanship, if you dream of it, I'll kill you." Despite being of Marky's blood, Fawn had reduced Jack to a background character and said he would only consider him his brother if he obeyed everything he said. In that past, Jack was so weak that people laughed at him. Forget about his family. Even commoners outside made fun of him. This is some noble. This wasn't a coincidence. Fawn and his maternal side, Houseman, were behind it. Yet, Jack doesn't want to say anything to him now. But this was the biggest twist in House Voltaire. The eldest child was a girl, Jack's sister, and she was his. The only support. She was the one who always loved Jack. When everyone had abandoned him, his sister did not leave him. Elizabeth was Jack's elder sister, a year older than Fan. But genetics did not favor her, so she could not become the next head of the family because she was a girl. She was the eldest. Beautiful too, but her fate was already decided. She was married into a family chosen by her father for political gain. There she remained a prisoner, just a child-bearing machine. Fan was the one who exploited her the most. Those words of Duke. He used to treat the son of the royal family and the royal family in a very despicable manner. When Jack remembers all this, he glares at his brother. "It would be better if you died." But Fan does not like Jack's gaze and tries to punch him. Jack catches his hand. Complete shock. Even the guards are shocked. Fan gets stunned. But Jack, without any fear, throws him into the furniture. Now Fan starts using mana in anger and takes out his sword. The guards are a little shaken by seeing this against an unarmed 14-year-old child. They do not do anything out of fear because stopping Fan means self-destruction. Jack just laughs seeing this hypocrisy. Ron comes in between. "Stop Fan. This place is considered not fit for use." But Fan does not care. He punches Ron. Jack is not worried seeing Ron's condition because Ron is not an ordinary man. He has many secrets. Now Fan threatens to kill Jack and Ron for disrespect. Jack interrupts him and says you talk too much. Fan gets even more furious and swings his sword. He's never trained, nor is he near the forbidden, but he persists. Jack manages to get close in a moment, dodging Fan's sword. Fan is a third circle mana user and surrounds himself with a fancy aura. But his sword skills aren't that impressive. Jack considers picking him up and throwing him around, but then decides no, he needs to teach him a real lesson. He grabs Fan's face and slams him into a pillar. He might have fractured his skull, but Jack is simply settling his score, a small portion of humiliation that he had suffered for years. Fane falls unconscious to the ground. Now the entire rose garden is speechless. A guard reaches for his sword, but Jack glares at him coldly. Touching that sword would blow off my knee. That was enough. The guard steps back. Then Jack grabs Fane's hair and drags him to a pool of water. He's quite heavy, he thinks. Once there, Jack gets an idea. He dunks Fane's head in the water. Initially, there's no response. Then he starts writhing in pain. Jack thinks he's in such shock that, I guess I forgot to use it. Jack remembers everything as he drowns his brother. After Elizabeth's wedding, Fane denounced their father and became a marquis himself. He then became a despicable man who destroyed House Whittier. But Jack doesn't care about the house or his father. He's angry only that Elizabeth's sacrifice was in vain. She was a bright and kind girl, but when she went to the Empire, she knew what the consequences would be. Yet, she went for her family. The man she became the bride of was the fourth prince of the Empire, a man who, he was worse than any corrupt politician. On Elizabeth's wedding day, the prince declared, "You're not even my legal wife. You just smile for show." And Elizabeth endured all of that, just for the sake of her family. Remembering Elizabeth's helplessness makes Jack's blood boil. If he continues to think about it, he'll become the Hulk. Then he sees a scene he never imagined. His older brother, Fane, is trembling with fear and begging for help. Jack recognizes the same fearful faces he's seen on the faces of his victims in his past lives. I saw it. He gives Fane a moment to think. Remember what you did? But Fane can't remember. Only then does he understand the importance of family. Jack is finally about to deliver the final blow when someone else stops him. Ron, his loyal servant. Jack stops after hearing Ron's words, but he's not ready to let Fane go. So he slams Fane's head against the edge of the pool once more. Then he releases him. He orders a guard. Take whatever's left of him. It's a good thing Fane isn't dead. Jack lets go of his hands. Good job. Just then, he bumps into Ron. No one talks about it. But the news spreads like wildfire through the family. Fane was unconscious. He was picked up by servants and his wounds were treated. In fact, Fane is Jack's stepbrother and has the full support of his mother and the House of Lords. He was supposed to be the next heir to House Veltier. But Jack broke his face. Now he is bedridden and afraid of water. The family is enraged by this humiliation. It's also a topic of discussion outside. If Jack hasn't even trained, how is he so strong? Fane is a talented third circle user. He had become a mana master at the age of 17. Now his younger brother has defeated him. What kind of power does Jack have? And why has he kept it hidden all this time? Next year, Finn is to be declared the successor. But now the whole house is talking about Jack. Some are even asking if Jack is jealous of this position. Now everyone's eyes are on Marquis Voltaire. Jack's father, Marquis, gives the order, bring Jack to the main building immediately. At that moment, Jack is eating cake. The servants run to inform Ron. Ron tells Jack. Jack gets up and decides to go alone. He decides. Ron wishes him luck. Jack sets off. Everyone in the building is staring at him like he's a murderer. A barrage of death stares. But Jack doesn't care. What do randos say to me? He reaches Marquis Whittier's room, but the guards stop him. No one says anything, as if they're taunting him. Jack tries to get them to pay attention, but gets the silent treatment. Jack now finds it all funny. He kicks a guard's knee to get his attention. The guard makes a funny face, either angry or, is it true or does it have a stomach ache? But Jack Kamali says, change this face or I will have to pick you up from the ground. Now the guard says, what did you say? Then Jack kicks him again. This time he falls down. Jack tells him that Marquis has called him. Why are you not letting me in? The guard says we are not allowed to tell the reason. Jack understands that all this is a way to punish me. He turns back and starts leaving. The guard asks, "Where are you going?" Jack says if the matter is so important, then Marquis should come and talk to him himself, and he leaves. Hearing this, both guards' jaws drop. This entire incident, so rude, is reported to the Marquis. Marquis Valthier hears this and laughs. Jack has truly changed. Jack stands outside the villa, waiting for his father. Just then, a large convoy approaches from a distance. The same face, the same arrogance, looks at Jack, as if everything is the same as before. Marquis Valthier, the same greedy man who once handed Jack over to thugs for his own dreams. Jack knows this man was never worthy of being called a father. The Marquis asks, "Why did you do all this?" Jack stares coldly. "What are you talking about?" Jack's attitude infuriates Fan's mother. Marquis revs up his energy to test Jack's presence of mind. But Jack's having none of it. Then he asks, "Have you been training lately?" Jack takes a sip of his drink and says, "I just felt like it." Fan's mother starts screaming in anger, but Marquis's gesture silences her. Marquis says, "You're useful." Jack gets irritated by this. I mean, if you're not useful, you're not useful. If he had been, he wouldn't have been a son. Marcus asks, "Do you want me to consider you my son?" But Jack says it clearly. That ship has sailed long ago. Everyone is stunned. Marquis leaves without saying anything. Jack is shocked. "You're leaving so soon. Then why did you come?" While the convoy is leaving, Jack sees Fan's mother and turns on his troll mode. "Have you got a few more wrinkles on your face?" Jack sarcastically says, "Maybe I can give you some beauty tips because of Fan." Fan's mother's face turns red, but Jack gets pure joy from this. He meets him. Then he says, "Sorry about the felon incident." A little while later, Ron arrives and tells him he's been given 20 days of solitary confinement. Ron scolds him. "What happened in the main building?" Jack says, "Relax, Ron. When Felon used to beat me, no one said anything. Now, I taught him a lesson, and he became a criminal. The Rose Garden is already in isolation. Now, Jack will face even more confinement." Jack thinks, now, along with the punishment, the Royal Academy is also going to start. I'm 14, and the Royal Academy is where noble children study. It happens. This school runs for 4 years, and I'm currently in the first year. The first semester is over. It's summer vacation. Jack remembers that his master from his previous life has a deep connection with the academy. He must meet him now. Sitting in his confinement, he thinks, drawing eights like Picasso. There are 30 holidays left. It will take 20 days of confinement and 6 days to reach the academy. This means that the Marquis wants Jack to go straight to the academy as soon as his punishment is over. Jack wonders, how am I still alive after enduring so much torture? And then he asks himself, how did I come back to the past? Jack asks his servant Ron where he will be imprisoned. Ron hesitates at first, but then tells him he will be imprisoned in the place where the domain's criminals are put. That is, breeding. Jack is stunned to hear this. While noble children go to social parties and meet with the weasels during vacation, Jack is sent straight to prison, and Jack sets out on his own to breed. Before the knights come to pick him up, Ron starts crying over his condition. But Jack, to avoid embarrassment, it's best to leave quickly. Now, sitting in his cell, Jack realizes the conditions are a little better than he thought. He has a bed, a toilet, and 3 meals a day. But the bed looks like it's from the dinosaur era, and the food is the purest form of lunch. This humiliation makes Jack's blood boil, because in this world, the nobles of a domain can enforce their own laws in their territories. So, Marquis Valthier is practically a king, and he put his own son in prison. Jack wonders how his family will support the felon now? Perhaps in his heart, because Jack has poisoned someone. Did he use an artifact or learn dark magic? He imagines a scenario himself. He learned dark magic out of greed. Felon stopped him. Jack attacked and broke his brother's skull. Still, Felon forgave him. Thinking all this, Jack wants to hit his head on the wall. Now he makes a plan to escape from this prison. But he knows that his body is weak right now. Height 55, weight 121 pounds. In his previous life, he survived because he was strong. This time, genocide is not necessary, but power is necessary. Jack's plan is to go to the academy and gain power again. He has to recruit talented students there so that he can save Ron, Elizabeth, and his master. Then he gathers some mana in his palm, a glowing spark. In this world, mana users are divided into 10 circles. First to third circle, beginners, fourth to sixth, experts, seventh and above, high circles, and then those in the 10th circle are masters. Jack wants to practice all this alone and secretly, because it takes 2 hours to create 8 mana circles. He creates a mana ball in his palm and realizes that he first trained at the age of 17. He had just started. Just then, he hears footsteps, and he quickly shakes off his refusal. He lies down in bed, wondering if it's Marston, but the voice is faint. It's someone else. As she comes to his cell and calls his name, Jack jumps up with a start. It's the same voice he's only heard in his dreams, and if it weren't for his past memories, he might never have seen her. It's none other than his older sister, Elizabeth Veltier. Jack goes to visit her, and Elizabeth is distraught at the state of her younger brother. Jack is relieved. He feels it because Elizabeth is still the same as he remembered her. Kind and beautiful. Elizabeth calls him Jackie, a nickname he hasn't heard in decades. Elizabeth is perplexed as to why Jack resorted to dark magic when she could have taught him magic herself. But Jack remains lost in his emotions. Elizabeth brings him back to Earth, asking if he's okay. Jack closes his eyes and says, "I'm just glad I'm not dreaming. You're real." Jack suddenly suggests they run away into the mountains. Elizabeth is a little saddened by this suggestion. Jack knows how the phone and his mother treat Elizabeth, so he wants them to go somewhere quiet and find a suitable shutter. But when he starts talking about the Marquis, Elizabeth screams his name. Elizabeth explains that whatever happened, the Marquis is their father, and she doesn't want Jack saying anything like that again. She wants Jack to be patient a little longer. Hearing all this, Jack remembers memories of his past life. He says softly, "It's nice to meet you. Many years." Jack then stands up and tells Elizabeth to step back from the cell door. When she does, Jack gathers mana in his hand and breaks the cell lock in one stroke. Elizabeth is shocked. "When did you learn to make a mana circle?" Jack runs to her and hugs her tightly. He starts crying and apologizes. But Elizabeth's confusion grows. Jack says, "I'm fine. But this time everything will be different. I'll give you the life you deserve." Elizabeth pats him on the back. But Jack's behavior is. Not only that, in his past life, Jack learned from Elizabeth's husband, Prince IV, during interrogation about the atrocities Elizabeth suffered. It was so horrific that even Jack the Ripper would have been shocked. Jake was the only person who knew what was going to happen to Elizabeth. That's why Jack wiped out the Thulon imperial family, starting with the prince. Now, a little backstory. In his past life, Jack ran away from home at the age of 17. 10 years later, the Thin Kingdom and House Voltaire were destroyed. The Thulon Empire ruled the entire western continent. Few people survived from House Voltaire. When Elizabeth heard that her family had been imprisoned, she fell to her knees before the fourth prince, begging him to spare her family. But because Elizabeth was not his legal wife, he pushed her away and turned her away. Elizabeth refused to give up. She spent 4 days begging in the rain. Finally, the emperor and the fourth prince feigned mercy and promised to spare the family. At least that was the story spread across the continent. But Jack learned the real truth much later. When Elizabeth went to thank the prince, he revealed that he had simply found a way to blackmail her. "I can destroy your family at any time," he said, and turned Elizabeth into his puppet. From there, her life became hell. Elizabeth became not only the prince's plaything, but also the Emmert and the third princes. The real wives couldn't tolerate this. Finally, the prince left her. The others then locked Elizabeth in a secluded villa, where she slowly died. By then, House Whittier had been completely destroyed, and Jack hadn't heard of it. By the time he arrived, he had become so powerful that he went straight into Itachi mode. He wiped out the Thulon Empire, sparing no one. He even wiped out all families connected to the Thulon royal bloodline. The entire Thulon Empire was erased from history. But now, when he remembers those events, he feels this future was truly terrifying. Elizabeth tells Jack to take care of himself. Jack internally promises that this time he will change everything. When Elizabeth returns, she realizes that Jack is no longer the same. The one who used to hide in fear is gone, but she still doesn't believe the idea of dark magic. Elizabeth herself is a sixth circle mage. If Jack had learned dark magic, she would surely have realized it. The Marquis is also a seventh circle mage, and even he couldn't catch it. She knows this is all a trap set by the Marquis or the Marchess. Elizabeth goes to the Marquis and demands Jack's release. She says Jack could never learn dark magic. The Marquis listens silently and then gives her a signal. She falls silent and understands. She goes on to say that it was a warning. Marquis openly states that Jack is just a tool for them, and when he grows up, his identity will be hidden and everyone will be told that Jack is dead. Elizabeth is stunned. Marquis is amazed at how Jack defeated the felon without the circle. Elizabeth now understands that what she saw breaking the locks was not ordinary magic. Marquis finally orders Jack released from prison. Elizabeth bows and thanks him, but as she leaves the room, she remembers Jack's words to run away. She does, and then she bursts into tears, convinced that escaping the fate that has been decreed for her is now impossible. A new day dawns. Jack is still in prison. Last night, he had strange dreams. Perhaps they were memories of his past. Just then, a guard arrives and rudely tells him, "Get out." Jack, contrary to his habit, maintains his composure. He tries to take his shoes and clothes from the guard, but the guard arrogantly says, "You've gotten too carried away." Jack's patience gives way. He stands before the guard and stands coldly. He stares intently. The guard realizes his mistake, but it's too late. Jack's fist tightens. The conversation ends. Jack breaks the guard's jaw in one blow. Who knows if he survived? Finally, Jack returns to the rose garden. Ron is alarmed to see him. "Are you all right?" Jack says. Everything is fine, but Ron, noticing the blood stains on his clothes, asks, "This blood," Jack says calmly, "isn't mine." Just then, Jack sees some new faces, 10-foot soldiers and a page from the Iron Blood Order. Jack thinks, this guy might be. Ron is working hard for his rank. A guard reports to the knight that Jack broke the guard's finger and eye. The knight, frightened, comes to question Jack, but Jack, seeing his demeanor and his mind, understands that he is a fourth circle user and belongs to House Mantis. Jack replies coldly, "Your job is to watch me. Don't interfere in my fights." Ron tries to calm the situation, but Jack becomes even more irritated. "If I break someone's head, beg me to stop." The knight quietly apologizes. Jack names him Chickling. "From now on, your name is Chickling. Chickling, and come running when I call." Ron gets nervous, but Jack pats him on the shoulder and starts walking. On the way, Jack's stomach grumbles with hunger. He says, "I want meat." Ron runs to the kitchen. After some time, the food arrives. Jack happily says, "Your food is amazing again." Ron blushes, but his uneasiness is also visible. Jack says, "Say, you have something to say." Ron refuses. "Nothing." Jack laughs and says, "Come and sit. You also have to eat." "I also have to say something." Ron hesitates. "I am not worthy." But Jack insists, "Ron." He agrees and sits down. Jack asks how Elizabeth is. Ron tells him she's fine. Jack smiles. "You know everything, Ron." Ron says, "I didn't understand." Jack looks at him and says, "You're a ninth circle magician, aren't you?" Ron is stunned. "How do you know?" Jack says, "You were the one who's been here since my mother's time. You protected Elizabeth and me when I left home in my previous life. The commander of the Iron Blood Order chased us." Old wounds are refreshed in Ron's eyes. Jack's voice softens a little. "I would never have survived without you. You sacrificed yourself to save mine. Ron's eyes well up. Actually, Jack was afraid of Ron because Ron was a ninth circle user who protected his mother. His mother was no ordinary woman either. Neither the Marquis nor Ron knew this secret. Jack thinks these things will be discussed later. Right now, Elizabeth's safety is most important. Ron says, "Sir, she can handle herself. She became a sixth circle user at 18. Jack says, "She's very kind. That's why she'd sacrifice herself. I won't let that happen." Jack. He tells Ron he's leaving for the academy the next day and won't return for 4 years. He tells Ron to protect Elizabeth for 4 years. After that, you can live your life as you wish. Ron asks why only 4 years? Jack says by then I'll be strong enough to protect Elizabeth myself. Jack was about to reveal who he was protecting when there was a knock on the door. Jack irritably said, "Come in." The door opened, and the same Iron Blood Order page entered. He reported. The guard who was injured was sent for treatment. He went. He made up a whole story. He cut a guard's finger during training. Then he gouged out his own eye with his sword. Jack ran away in fear. Jack laughs. Wow, what a story. Then he teases Paige. From now on, your name is Dog. Paige gets angry and reveals his name as James K. Jack says, "Okay, James, get me a real wooden sword." James refuses. Jack sees his arrogance and says, "Come on, I'll give you a chance at life. Defeat me." Ron is shocked. "Sir, he's a fourth circle user. Now, are you really going to fight him?" Jack laughs. "Yes. And we'll make a bet too." Ron is lost in thought. Then he says, "Why don't we bet on how many times you get hurt?" Jack agrees. "Okay, if I get hurt even once, you win, and the loser will fulfill any wish of the winner." Ron says, "Master, I am your servant. Tell me what you want." Jack says, "Ron, you are one of my trusted men. I only burden someone when I am sure." Ron sees no other option. James returns shortly. He kneels before Jack and apologizes. "I'm sorry for what happened. Please, forget my behavior before." Jack thinks, "Many people look down on me, but they get scared when they face me." Jack taunts, "Are you scared?" James angrily says, "No." Jack asks again, "So, will you beat me?" James remains silent. Jack says to Ron, "Come on, find a secluded place where we can practice." Ron takes them to a training facility in the manor's basement. Jack is shocked. This place was here. Ron tells him Lady Nova had it built for the children. Jack smiles. "All this is clear because of you. Thanks, Ron." But his smile on James fades. Jack sternly calls for a wooden sword. "You seem so comfortable holding a sword," James says. "You killed thousands of people in your past life," Jack thinks. "Now, a sword is a natural fit." Jack thanks his opponent for his compliment and immediately attacks him. Jack swings his sword, but James easily blocks the attack. He thinks Jack is a novice and can subdue him with a few small moves. But he was just planning when Jack had already slammed the sword into his chin. But he pointed it at him. Everyone is amazed at this speed. Jack thinks that if he had a past life, he would have died by now. Ron is also confused. He was sure that it was beyond Jack's power to stop James' attack. Ron thought that James would just push the sword slightly and Jack's game would be over right there. But Jack's every move was precise and deadly. Ron wonders how this kid could do this even after holding a sword for the first time. On the other hand, Jack asks, "Chicken Man, how old are you?" The answer comes, 23 years. Jack comes to know that James admitted that he started training at 18 and in 5 years, he's reached the fourth circle. He believes that despite starting late, he's quite talented. Perhaps he can advance to the 8th circle and become a commander. Jack throws away the wooden sword and picks up a real one. He thinks, despite being so talented, he's been put in my care. James warns him, he'll get hurt. Jack laughs. "You think the first victory was my destiny?" James is enraged by Jack's words. He moves forward to attack in anger. Jack sees how easy it is to anger him. That's why he will always remain a page. Both of them, swords clash, and Jack disarms James in an instant. James is stunned. Jack smiles and says, "When the swords collided, I simply changed direction." This is called an advanced technique. Ron watches. Who is this instructor? James angrily goes to pick up the real sword. Jack says to Ron, "Remember that bet? My only wish is to protect Elizabeth." Ron agrees. Coming back, James says, "Next time the result will be different." Jack laughs. "The only difference will be that now I agree." Jack jumps into the air and attacks James. He blocks, but lacks the strength to hold the sword in his hand. He falls to the ground again. Jack stamps his feet on his chest, sealing his victory. James wonders, is this really the third circle? How can someone from the first circle be so powerful? Jack understands this confusion is natural. I concentrated all my mana in one place, so my power increased many times over. Jack suddenly asks, "Do you really want to become a knight?" James is taken aback. "What else can I do?" Jack offers him, "Become my loyal hound, not a knight. Obey my orders." The hound. James asks, "What will I get from this?" Jack says, "You will get power and authority. Your job will be to protect me and sometimes assassinate me." Hearing this, James is stunned. "Whose?" Jack smiles. "Think about it. You have 1 day's time. Make the right decision." Time skips. Ron gives Jack a massage. He says, "Sir, you are being a little careless by trusting James." Jack knows he will go to Marsh and tell everything. Ron thinks she will try to get Jack killed when she gets a chance. Jack says no, she can't do that. The Marquis is alive and she needs me to pressure Elizabeth. The worst that could happen is if she breaks one of my bones. But even Harpy Lords, Orc Lords, and Dragon Lords couldn't do anything to me. So what can this noble Karen do? Jack says, "Don't worry, Ron. I won't die unless I want to." Ron wonders if his master even realizes his own death. Jack tells Ron, "You can't come with me openly. If you want to know what I'll do, you'll have to follow me quietly." Then he reveals something else. He's about to create his second circle. Jack orders him, "Don't let anyone enter my room." Ron is shocked. You know how difficult this task is. But for Jack, it's child's play. Ron agrees. Meanwhile, James is still bitter over his defeat. He thinks Jack must be from the third circle and, on top of that, a born genius. But he finds Jack's proposal strange. He's asking me to become a hound when he doesn't have any supporters or loyalists. He goes into a Vietnam War flashback, remembering Jack. Then he decides to give me everything to Murray. I should tell him. James thinks this opportunity could elevate him to a higher position in the family. He's confident that even though Jack is talented, he won't be able to bring down the family unless the plot armor falls into his lap. Meanwhile, Maris and Elizabeth are having an unfriendly conversation. Maris considers her inferior because Elizabeth's mother was a commoner. Besides Elizabeth's beauty, Maris doesn't consider her capable of anything. Maris offers her wine. Elizabeth refuses. "I can't drink in front of you." Maris finishes his glass alone. Then she tells about House Maron. The first son and the second son of House Small are interested in you, but Maris doesn't like them. That's why we'll find other suitors. She asks, "Are you interested in anyone?" Elizabeth says, "No, otherwise her game would be over." The next topic is Jack. It's reported that he tried to recruit James. Maris laughs at this. Elizabeth knows Jack only did this because of his father and stepmother. But she can't say it openly. Otherwise, Maris might harm Jack. Before leaving, Maris approaches Elizabeth and says coldly, she warns, "If you fall in love with someone, the consequences will be dire." Elizabeth reluctantly agrees. Now she will have to have dinner with the family in the dining hall. The atmosphere is cold and heavy. Then the door swings open and the whole atmosphere changes. Jack enters the hall like a ray of light in the pitch darkness. Some people are surprised and some are disappointed. Jack says, I want to join the meal. After all, I am also a part of the Valenti family. Actually, mana is used in two ways. First, by circulating it in the body, it increases strength, agility, and intelligence. Second, a slightly nerdy method where mana is shaped using formulas to create various spells. Therefore, mana users are divided into two categories: swordsmen and magicians. Jack falls into the swordsman category. Jack had just completed his second circle. Ron's face widens in surprise. He remembers that it took him 2 months to achieve the second circle, whereas the average time is 4 months. But Jack did it in just 5 hours. Jack asks what time it is. The answer is 5 p.m. Jack is shocked. It's so late. Just then, his stomach rumbles. It's thundering. It's time for dinner. He wants something different today. Not his usual steak. Jack remembers it's dinner time, so he figures he might as well try the main building food. Anyway, he had to tell everyone he was returning to the academy the next day. As he enters the hall, silence falls. The only sound is Jack chewing. He nibbles contentedly at the dishes on the table. The food tastes fine, but not like Ron's cooking. Hearing this sends chills down Murray's spine. Fan recalls old fears. Jack's stomach. He gets up, feeling relieved. The Marquis thinks he's definitely come to say something, and that's the truth. Who would come here without reason, enduring such a burdensome atmosphere? The Marquis thinks he's lost his mind. The seriousness on Jack's face makes the atmosphere even heavier. Elizabeth wants to go outside and talk to her brother, but the Marquis doesn't let her. Jack smiles and says, "I'm going to the academy tomorrow." Maris starts thinking of 1,000 ways to kill Jack. The Marquis simply says, "Okay, do what you want." Jack didn't need anyone's permission. The work is done. He gets up, thankfully. Are you letting him go without any fuss? As he leaves, he sees the condition of his brother Fan. The poor guy is scared of any liquid, even to drink. Jack feels a little sorry. After all, he's part of the family, so like a caring brother, he pours the wine on the table. As soon as the wine spills, Fan starts shaking violently and falls down with a thud. Maris becomes furious. She starts scolding Jack, but Jack leaves the hall without any worry. He has done what he had to do. Now the atmosphere has become even more heavy. Maris swears to herself, "I will end this." But Jack is waiting. Let's see what this woman can do. Her smile further provokes Maris. Some of the maids at the table are startled by Jack's audacity, but immediately get back to cleaning up before Nuke explodes. Maris' anger doesn't reach Jack all night. The only person he scolded is Elizabeth. She's deeply saddened that Jack did all this. The next morning, Jack leaves for the academy. The carriage is so shabby that he thinks it was bought from Craigslist. Only the cushions are a little better. He sees a guard riding it, Ren, a 6th circle knight. It's clear from his face. I've been assigned a task. Elizabeth follows him. I'll come too. Jack says, "No need. I'll be fine." Elizabeth thinks Murray is plotting something, so she doesn't want to stay. But Jack remains firm. "I'm not going to die so easily." Elizabeth finally agrees. Ron is worried, too. Jack senses their anxiety, but he confidently says, "Everything will be fine." He reminds Ron, "Don't forget tonight," he promises. Ron bows his head and says, "Yes." In the end, Jack accepts Elizabeth's responsibility. He hands it over to Ron. "Take care of it." Ron agrees and leaves. Now everything is settled. Ron will return later to witness tonight's mystery event. Jack takes a nap in the car. He feels the weather is making him lazy. The journey continues into the night. Jack opens his eyes when no one comes to wake him. He gets out of the car and sees everyone setting up camp. Then he sees his only chick, James. They look at each other without saying anything. Jack smiles. Who knows what path he has chosen? Just then, Regine comes forward, followed by him. There's a crowd of soldiers. Resin tells Jack that at every stop, his bones will be broken and then healed with medicine. Jack is shocked that this is all Mara's plan. But that's not Resin's real intention. He says, "We found out you just created a mana circle. Now it will be broken." Jack knows that breaking a mana circle means a death sentence. Even though a mana circle can be created again, no one has the courage to endure the pain. Resin taps Jack's shoulder with his sheathed sword. He also tells James stories of Jack's abilities. They've heard of it. But Regen is confident that this time Jack's cunning will be in vain. He draws his sword. Some locals were watching the scene, but they walked away, thinking who would get involved in a feud between nobles. But Jack is reminded of the old days. He used to be called Mad Summon. So many years have passed, but that old passion hasn't died. He calls out to Ron, but there's no answer. In his previous life, he lived in the forest for 10 years. It was there that he met his master. When his master passed away, Jack descended the mountain and saw House Voltaire and the entire kingdom destroyed. It's already happened, and he doesn't care. Regen wonders what this madman is blabbering about. Jack takes out a sword from his cane. At that moment, only one thing bothered him. What happened to Elizabeth? Such a smart and capable sister. If only she had found a good husband. Maybe then Jack would forgive everything. Regen laughs. He even pulled out this tiny sword. Jack talks about revenge. At first, he thought, let Miraz break a rib, but breaking the mana circle was too much. He admits that a little talent or mana can't solve everything, but a lot of talent can solve a lot. To prove this, Jack leaps into the air and begins to chant a powerful lightning spell. All the guards understand. Now either Jack survives or they run. But it's too late. Jack's lightning attack tears everyone apart. James never regretted choosing Fan, because at that time Jack seemed useless. But today he realizes what a huge mistake he made, and right there his time ends. Jack's sword shatters. All the guards are gone. Mana is still coursing through his body. Jack calls out to Ron again. The bushes rustle. Ron comes out and is stunned by the sight. What he saw was Jack's first technique in the Transcendent Realm style. But Jack knows Ron won't understand. Ron thought it was a supposed attack. Jack needs nourishment, but before he can say anything, his body falters and he falls to the ground. He spits out blood but says, "I'm fine. Give me nourishment." Ron immediately takes nourishment from his jacket and feeds it to Jack. It was luck. If Ron hadn't had nourishment, Jack would have died. But Jack had faith. Ron, he always carries a potion with him and will save me before his own life. Because the same thing happened in his previous life. Jack thinks, last time I was just running away. Today I should at least say thank you. He wonders why it was so difficult to say this. Then he tells Ron, I've gone back in time. Ron now understands the secret of Jack's success. Jack sits down. The potion was amazing. He feels much better now. He stands up. He picks up the sword from Ron's dead body. Then he looks at James' corpse. Alas, he only ever wanted to create an iron boy. But Chickling lives there. Now Jack thinks maybe Ron will ask some questions, like what will happen to Elizabeth? Ron had already anticipated that something bad would happen to the volunteer family, but he didn't know. Everyone would be wiped out. Jack is ready to tell, but Ron doesn't want to listen. Finally, Ron asks just one question. Tell me, what will happen to me in the future? Ron was absolutely sure that he wouldn't die a violent death, but Jack had come to tell him the truth. Your death in the future will be very painful. Ron's heart broke. After a moment of silence, Jack went back to the car and went to sleep. Ron examines the bodies of the dead guards. He seals one's open eyes and mouth. All had holes in their chests, but none were sword wounds. Ron was astonished. How did Jack do this? But even more frightened, he wondered what kind of future Jack had seen. After a while, Ron went to wake Jack. Jack woke up immediately. Ron asked again if everything was all right. Jack explained that even after drinking the potion, everything was fine. Ron explained that he had stolen 5 high-quality potions, 63 gold coins, and 40 shillings from the guards. Jack was not surprised because all this, they were Houseman's men. But he knew that even drinking the potion wouldn't ease his heart. He returns 3 portions to Ron, repaying your favor. Ron happily accepts. Jack gets out of the car. What will happen to the bodies? Whatever happens will be seen. Ron says the Marquis will get suspicious. Jack doesn't care. Let him suspect. What will he do? Ron thinks the Marquis will summon him. Jack says let's bet again. But Ron admits defeat. This time, no gambling. Ron kneels down and says, I'm sure you have a plan. Actually, Ron had cast an illusion in the main building. He had created a fake image of himself using the 9 Circles illusion. Only those currently busy in Monster Forest could recognize him. But Ron knew that if Marky found out the truth, he would be questioned. Jack said, Tell me then. It was all my idea. Jack gave Ron a message in case Marky set out to kill him. If you or Elizabeth die, I'll destroy House Veltier. Then there was silence. But Jack knew this was just for the worst-case scenario. He wanted to give Marcus one last chance. Elizabeth's father, to become a hero and make the right decision. Now Jack was ready to go to the academy. Ron asked if Marky had called him, and Jack smiled. The academy rules stated that one could return only if someone died or if news of the head of the family had died. Ron was a little sad. He wanted to go with Jack, but Jack put a hand on his shoulder. They would avoid monsters on the way and take care of Elizabeth. This would probably be their last meeting for 4 years. Ron turned back. Jack thought about his next plan. It would take 4 days to reach the academy by road. Jack wondered how long it would take if he went through the forest. He saw the road was longer. It's not difficult. There must be a village nearby. He takes out his horse. It's a little difficult to climb. Despite his past life, his body isn't used to it anymore. Finally, he mounts the horse and sets off. The path is quieter than before. The fresh air, no conspiracy. He doesn't want to go straight to the academy. His mind is on the search for Valentine Milrose, the very master who gave him power. Valentine Milrose, in everyone's eyes, the frightening face of the dark magician who made Jack what he is today, a vengeful man in the bottomless. He feels his heart race. After so long, the heart, it's beating so fast. Finally, Jack arrives in Arbala town, the vassal of House Montage, the territory of Viscount Arbala, goes to an inn. Some children were playing. Jack is reassured by smiling faces. This place will suit him. He steps into the inn, a pleasant atmosphere. A random dog comes towards him. Jack looks for a place to sit. After a while, the innkeeper woman greets him. Looking at the deep scars on her face and her bulky figure, anyone would say she must be a mercenary. But she is very cheerful. Jack orders for light food, a drink, and his sword. But he paid too much. The woman says just 1 shilling was enough. She offers to get something else as a bonus. Jack orders milk. He's still a minor, after all. But her laughter starts to bother Jack a little. Now Jack's order is ready, and the innkeeper lady goes to get it. Jack thinks how lively this place is. Perhaps it's because it's peaceful. Anyone could see Jack was an outsider. Yet, surprisingly, the woman didn't extort more money from him. All this peace lasted only until the war broke out. Then Jack overhears a conversation. A big man. An operation is being planned to wipe out all monsters. No one knows why. The Thulan Empire has taken no action. This operation was supposed to require 20,000 mana users. At the same time, most of the soldiers of House Veltier's elite force, the Iron Blood Order, were sent to the Forest of Monsters. In fact, the King of the Thin Kingdom took a large number of soldiers from every house and forced them into the same forest. This forest was located beneath the Grand Range Mountains. Thousands of fantasy monsters, such as orcs, goblins, and elves, lived there. Their remains were used for armor, nutrition, and other purposes. Beauty products, even elf-sized potions, were traded. Seizing neutral territory without any risk was simply greed. Jack knew it would all fail. 1/3 of the Iron Blood Order's army was killed. The king lost the support of both the people and the nobles. Jack remembered this was the canon event that tore the entire kingdom apart. Then civil war broke out. Jack was still thinking when a drunkard slammed his glass. The man was lashing out at the king's foolishness. Just then, his companion, frightened, stopped him. He was afraid to speak out against the king. The punishment is death. Jack silently admires the drunkard's courage. Meanwhile, something else catches Jack's attention. The Marquise's youngest son was being discussed. His own. Stories of his dark magic and imprisonment had spread throughout the village. Everyone mocked and abused Jack. Just then, the lady brought him food. She asked, "What's this joke?" Jack was a little confused. What joke? Then he realized he was just smiling absent-mindedly. The lady sat down on a chair nearby. "By the way, what were you listening to?" Jack continued, "Some nonsense about the Marquise's son. He says people often form opinions without seeing them. But the lady says, I don't trust anyone without seeing them myself." Jack warns her, sometimes rumors are true. Then he takes a bite of the pie. It tastes good, but not Ron's level. The lady says, "Well, I don't believe the rumors about the Marquise's son. How could such a handsome man possibly be true?" Jack thinks, this woman is no ordinary innkeeper. Looking at her facial scars, her muscular build, and the mercenaries hovering around, Jack has a clue. This is it. She's the branch manager of the Adventurers Guild. Lady was stunned. "How do you know?" Jack explained. Mercenaries live in every village. They do things like fight monsters and find lost cats, and they often make their bases around here. Jack was intrigued. So why is a guild manager running an inn? Lady smiled. Work is hard to come by. You have to earn something. Actually, this inn was also the Adventurers Guild's lodging facility. Jack admired her. That's really smart. In House Veltier, Jack was called a good-for-nothing. But here, he was just. It was a topic of gossip. Jack wonders how the branch manager recognized him in such a remote place. Then an idea strikes him. Jack remembers when he first arrived in the village. The guard stopped him and began a security check. Jack then showed his crest, his get-out-of-jail-free card. The guard became nervous upon seeing the crest and apologized. "Forgive me, young master. I didn't recognize you." Jack was then allowed in with ease. Jack thinks these must be the people who told guild manager Jane about him. Well, that would have been considered dangerous. But Jane treated him like a normal person. No hatred, no contempt, while her brothers and the knights of the house always looked down on her. Jane smiled and extended her hand. "My name is Jane Arabala." Jack shook her hand. Only then did he realize that Jane belonged to a noble family, the Arabala domain. She was the third child, and the eldest brother was the lord of the area. Nobles usually marry off their daughters early. But Jane ran the mercenary guild on her own. Jack was amazed by this. He wished his house was like that. Jane with her dog, Arnold. She calls out to him. He immediately jumps into her lap. Then she asks Jack, "Why did the Marquise's son come to Arabella alone?" Jack replies, "I don't need guards." Jane is surprised. "You're not really what the rumors say." But Jack had a long journey ahead, so he wanted to hire some mercenaries. At least 5 men who were adept at camping and cooking. Regarding payment, Jack explains, "I'll give each man 2 gold right now, and 3 more when we reach our destination." Hearing this, Jane's face lit up with joy. She ran. Jack thinks 30 shillings is enough to protect a merchant. Here, 100 pennies charge 1 shilling, and 100 shillings charge 1 gold. That means he was paying a large sum to the guild. Still, he had to buy food and equipment. The plan was to cover all those expenses in 3 gold. They also needed carriages and hoses. Chan now understands clearly. He's hit the jackpot. She hands Jack the room key. "You can relax. I'll personally select the best warriors from the guild." Jack thinks that's probably why the entire village is so safe. Reaching the room, Jack falls straight on the bed. He was so tired that even the intention of taking a bath was abandoned. While sleeping, he dreams. He is standing with Master Valentine in a cave. Valentine says, "Do you want to remain weak?" Jack screams, "No." Then she hugs him and says, "Now I am your master." Jack's eyes were open, tears were flowing on his face. It was a new morning. Just then Jane opens the door and comes in a sunshine mood. Arnold is also with him, who starts licking Jack's face. Jack gets ready. When he comes down, Jane tells him all the preparations. It's done. High-quality carriage, good warriors, all ready. But Jack recognizes some mercenaries. They were the same ones who were criticizing him yesterday. Now everyone is regretting it. Then a man comes forward and says, "My name is John Doe, leader of the fire and mercenaries." Jack thinks to himself, who is such a basic placeholder name? He can't believe it. This must be his real name, yet he shakes hands. They decide to go via Mount Boulder. The area was deserted. Only a few villages were inhabited. It was estimated that 2 camps would be set up. Jane tells him that some of these soldiers are good. There are cooks too. This detail bores Jack. "I don't have to do anything with this." He hands John his suitcase. As he leaves, he turns at the door and says to Jane, "This John is a very interesting man, even with such a default name." Although Jack's body had changed, his eyes and senses were still the same. It's rare for someone like Ron to be from the Ninth Circle. It's understandable that he hid his powers and identity. But John, an 8th Circle soldier, was also hiding something. Still, Jack wasn't complaining. After all, he was the one who had asked for experienced fighters. Jack felt he'll see Jane again sometime. Meanwhile, Jane thinks, "The next time we meet, we'll definitely have a beer." Jack laughs to himself. He just pays the bill, and with that thought, he leaves the inn. The convoy has departed. Jack is enjoying himself in the shiny new carriage. Yesterday's fatigue has now vanished. He's resting on the carriage roof. Then his eyes fall on John, who's staring. Jack wonders what's going on, but then ignores him. He calls another mercenary. "You know who you're scouting?" The man is as confident as an introvert. He just knew. Jack was the son of a nobleman traveling the world. Jack threw something at him. It was a noble crest. The man looked at the crest as if he remembered something, but couldn't quite identify it. Jack said, "This crest belongs to House Veltier, which will soon be destroyed." The atmosphere cooled at that. Then he mentioned the idiot child of that family, the one who was sent to prison. Now Mercery understood who Jack was. He wished he had known all this before today. Jack said, "Listen, I've also learned a little dark magic. My master dark magic." It was a goat. Then he smiled and said, "But for such people, my fist will be enough." Then he called the man's friend. "Yesterday, when you heard about the king, you silenced him. But when I was criticized, you said nothing." Now everyone was shocked. This is the last son of House Veltier. Everyone except Mr. John Doe was stunned. Jack thought, maybe the branch manager only told John. Well, now they had to live together. Mercedes began to pray in her heart. May this boy never get angry at us. Time passed and night fell. The camp was ready. Judging by Jack's behavior so far, everyone began to believe the rumors must be false. This wasn't some arrogant noble, but just another ordinary person. Jack ate his dinner himself and then washed the dishes. That night's dinner was so good that he silently forgave Jane. It was better than her cooking. He even remembered Ron. Poor Ron had been left behind, but washing the dishes was Jack's way of thanking him. Then names were drawn for the night's watch. Jack flatly said, "Don't include my name. I don't compromise my sleep." Then came story time. Jack asked the first question, "Tell me, how many drags are there in the world? Are there any left?" Everyone said King Julius had wiped them all out centuries ago. It was a national myth. King Julius Thin and his two companions defeated all the Draugrs on the western continent and created the Thin Empire. But Jack said those were old stories. In fact, Draugrs are still alive today. There are 2 Lord Draugrs in the Dark Sea. The Imperial family has a hatchling. 5 are hiding in the Forest of Monsters, and 8 Draugrs roam in human form. That means a total of 16 Draugrs are still on this continent. Everyone was stunned. Jack continued, Draugrs, they have taken an oath not to interfere in the affairs of humans. John asked, didn't King Julius kill them? Jack replied, no, he made a deal with them. His 2 companions did the actual work. Now Mr. Placeholder named John asked, so what are those dragons doing these days? Jack explained. Then what are those dragons doing these days? Jack explained. Between the western continent and the eastern continent, there is a dark sea. For centuries, the dragon lords have guarded the border of this sea. No one knows the true origin of this sea. All that is known is that it was created to divide the 2 continents. The dragon lords established there. He maintained this tradition by handing over his duties to his children. But despite all this, Jack was still eager to see the eastern continent. After listening to the story, the camp fell silent. Then suddenly the mercenaries started laughing. Someone praised Jack's storytelling. You're a great storyteller. It seems you just want to relieve your loneliness. Jack didn't expect them to believe it, but it didn't matter to him, believe it or not. Jack needed a bath. He went to get a towel from the carriage. A soldier asked, shall I stand guard? Jack said, no need. He went to take a shower. The mercenaries were starting to think his words were lies. Jack wondered, I don't know why I keep saying all this. He himself was aware of his main character energy. Sometimes hiding his powers was boring. But Jack's real concern was for John Doe. He suspected he might be a spy for the Thulan kingdom. He had the same suspicion about Jane. After all, he sent a mercenary with a fake name who turned out to be an 8th Circle mana user. This was the same level as the commander of the Iron Blood Order. How did the leader of an unknown mercenary group just end up in Jack's lap? But perhaps John's. He must have his reasons. Jack put a hand to his chest. He brightened slightly. In fact, his condition had gradually improved in the carriage. After bathing, Jack realized the time to meet his master was near. He had decided, if John did anything like the Thun spy, he would have to leave. There was no other way. Jack returned to camp, sword in hand. Something's bothering me, he said. John pretended to be ignorant. What's the matter? Jack drew his sword. You're the problem. Tell me, what are you doing as an 8th Circle mercenary? A soldier. He was stunned. Sir, you are the 8th Circle. John silenced him. Jack said, tell me now, and I'll cut you down. Even that random mercenary trembled with fear. Jack strongly suspected John might be a spy. Jane was also under suspicion. Jack said, John, tell me, or I'll do Jane a disservice. His face resembled that of a serial killer. John was enraged. But his mana circle remained calm. He wasn't showing any fear or attacking. Jack knew that if he had activated the mana circle, he would have been cut in 2 in an instant. But now John had no hope of survival. There was a chance. Jack said, you have a minute. Make the right decision. In a flashback, Jane and John were talking. Jane said, Jack isn't what the rumors say. I saw in his eyes that he was holding back a lot. Then she told him, he wants to hire soldiers. I want you to find out about him. Jane thought, maybe Jack could change their fate. John realized, Jack really wasn't what the rumors said. Now, at camp, Jack waited for an answer. John felt like a vegetarian trapped in front of a lion. His conscience was telling him, I'm not. This boy is dangerous. That was the strangest thing he found. How did Jack know he belonged to the 8th Circle? Did Jane tell him anything? But Jane wasn't like that. If she had, she would have told him earlier. The clock was ticking. Only 40 seconds remained. The question was, could Jack really destroy an 8th Circle? But seeing the cruelty in his eyes, John started thinking, is this really a child? John wondered, should I tell the truth or make up some other excuse? The other soldiers were just as confused. He felt as if he was standing on the edge of a precipice. and the entire life of mercenary was at stake. It flashed before his eyes. So far, luck had been on his side. Now he thought, let's see how far fate takes us. Just then, Jack raised his sword. Time was running out, but John spoke. He started talking about Jane. Jack was startled and paused. John's story was actually a love story. He was a commoner, and Jane was a noblewoman. He met Jane when John was in the 7th circle. Jane was 19 years old then. It was love at first sight. They'd been in a relationship ever since. Now he understood why Jane hadn't married. But whether she was a commoner or not, anyone else from the 8th circle is always respected. But John became a mercenary, yet Jack didn't find anything wrong with that. The mercenaries were surprised that their commander was in a relationship with Jane. Jack guessed that Jane might come from a noble family unconcerned with power. She was the guild manager of a small domain, and John was a mercenary. Putting it all together, Jack understood. John took this job to gain some advantage. But this story could also be false. So Jack used his ability to discern truth from lies. Jack recalled an old story. Tell me, why does the Thulan Empire have dragon hatchlings? John had no idea. A master is essentially someone with 10 mana circles in their heart, but an even higher level is transcendence. These individuals use the power of the soul instead of mana. Jack explained that in 2 years, Hank's Bikarim, the imperial family's guard, will become transcendent and the empire's most powerful swordsman. A transcendent will be born after several generations. But Hank's won't achieve this level on his own. He will exchange half his bones and blood with a dragon. He will be half human, half dragon. It will be done. John didn't understand what this had to do with me. Jack said, Thulan has a dragon. They can't experiment much. That's why spies were sent to other countries to find other dragons. Hearing this, John started laughing. He said, Brother, this sounds like a story straight out of a novel. If he tells this to the other Mercedes, maybe they'll believe it. Jack saw his smile and decided, this isn't a spy. Now Jack believed him. He walked past him. I hope your wedding really happens. But then Jack noticed something and quickly drew his sword behind his neck. In fact, John too. He was about to draw his sword. Jack grabbed his mouth. I suspected you earlier, so I'm leaving you alive. If you show even the slightest killing intent again, I'll wipe you off the face of the earth. The other soldiers panicked and tried to intervene. Jack thought, I thought we'd reached a compromise. But perhaps this is the relationship between an employer and an employee. Jack was fast asleep that night. Meanwhile, the mercenaries were still in shock. John belonged to the 8th circle. A few years ago, John had said he belonged to the 4th circle. Everyone was hurt by this. But perhaps there was some compulsion behind it. Now everyone was wondering, if our leader is from the 8th circle, we could become the most dangerous mercenary group on the continent. Someone said John would one day become king of the mercenaries. However, not just anyone can become king of the mercenaries. 4 mercenaries are already called masters. So John finds the soldier's words a bit too much. But everything Jack told him was true, so one soldier forgives John. Everyone has a reason, but he asks, why didn't you react when Jack held the sword to my neck? John says, Brother, it was so scary that my hands are still shaking, and it's impossible to explain. He was in such a state that he nearly ruined his pants. Chen was right. Jack was interesting, but equally dangerous. The battle for the throne of the Thulan Empire was already complicated. Moreover, who knows the stories of these draugrs and spies? What would happen next? John decided to find out more. A few days later, the carriage was still traveling. Jack felt like telling another story. This one was about Orc, who lived in the forest of monsters. The mercenaries only knew he was as powerful as the 9th circle, but Jack told him he was actually from the 10th circle. John was shocked to hear this. Jack, he said, 23 years ago, there was something between the Orc Lord and the Harpy Lord. Actually, Orcs and Harpies are considered each other's biggest enemies. These two species are called second tier, protectors of the forest. When Darks became Orc Lord, there was no hatred between them. But after 5 years, their relationship became public. Be it human, orc, or harpy, everyone desires power. Orcs and harpies started becoming good to remove their lord. But all their conspiracies failed. When everything calmed down, Darks and Vlee decided to end their relationship. Now, they should take care of their species. We will choose goodness. Whether this is true or not is unknown. But the orcs and harpies have become more dangerous than ever. Now the harpies have learned the art of war from the orcs, and the orcs have stolen the power of the elements. This was all due to Darks and Wheelie. So the two races engaged in war and became the most powerful species in the forest. Jack warned John, "If you ever get caught by an orc or a harpy, tell them this story. Maybe they won't kill you immediately." John wondered if it was true or Jack was joking. Well, he decided in his mind, let's just accept it. After the long story, Jack enjoyed the beef charqui that Jane had given him. At House Voltaire, the Marquis received the news. All of Jack's soldiers were dead. Investigators said it was some advanced magic. The Marquis was shocked. Who did this? He called Ganges. You said there was no news of Jack. Ganges said, maybe he escaped because his body wasn't found. The Marquis was convinced. Something was wrong. He gave Ganges free rein to investigate. The Marquis began to think. Maybe Jack wasn't as worthless as he thought. Meanwhile, Jack had reached Mount Boulder. He had paid everyone. John picked up the bundle and it felt heavy. When he opened it, he saw Jack had given him more money than he needed. Perhaps it was a bonus for helping him on the journey, or an apology for doubting him, or both. Jack said goodbye to everyone, but the mercenaries remained standing. Jack felt strange. Goodbye means, now go. Then John said, the life of a mercenary isn't bad. He said, you're the youngest son of a marquis, and you have no support. I know what happens to such people. Jack understood. John was offering him to become a mercenary. The other mercenaries probably didn't know that Jack could have killed John that very night. But John, he was fully aware of this. Yet, it was a matter of regret, because Jack knew that in a world obsessed with power, John possessed extraordinary talent. John had kept his powers hidden from his comrades, but he took responsibility for that night. In the end, Jack thanked him but declined the offer. Then he whispered a secret into John's ear. Something big is going to happen soon on the Western continent. When it happens, hide. John was at a loss for words, but Jack reassured him. When that time comes, remember me, then you will know why and where. Jack also says, money is important, but life is more precious. Don't get involved in that. John nods in agreement. Jack then heads towards the bushes. But as he leaves, John asks, what's your real name? Jack smiles. My name is Jack. Then he asks John for his real name. After a little hesitation, John says, Denmo. Anyone would hide it with a name like that. Now they both know each other's real names. Who knows if fate will bring them together again? From there, Jack begins his journey alone. He jumps up and down the mountain. Something else. After leaping, he arrives at a cave. He creates a mana ball for light and ventures inside. Perhaps he's come looking for diamonds. But in the end, he finds only a wall. In fact, his master is just beyond that wall. The first time he came here, he simply wanted to escape from his family. Jack takes out a bottle of magic water and splashes it on the wall. Then he grips his sword so hard that his hand cuts and bleeds. It was a small price to pay. He was a timid 17-year-old boy then. He was contemplating suicide. Ron, he was dead too, so he kept trying to escape. But at the last moment, he couldn't kill himself and started crying. A few drops of blood from his neck had opened a secret passage in the wall. At the time, it seemed nothing short of a miracle. But now, he knew all this already. He opened the passage, descended the stairs, and bandaged the wound. But there was still a slight trepidation. Decades had passed since their last meeting. Finally, He reached the deepest part of the cave. There, the soul of his master, Valentine Milrose, was locked, every living thing chained in a small body like a tsumaki. One has to grow old and die. Valentine had separated her soul from her body. Technically, she had been dead for 400 years. But now those chains were about to break. In Jack's previous life, she had lived for 10 more years. Now she thinks she might get 3 more. Valentine telepathically asks, "Who are you? The one who calls me master?" Jack smiles. "Recognize me." Valentine irritably says, "Don't be foolish." But Jack likes his master's indifference. Valentine wonders, "Who is this person who remembers me like this?" Jack says, "Your name is." Valentine is Milrose. "I am your disciple, come from the future." Valentine doesn't particularly enjoy hearing this story. He doesn't like storytellers because stories change the truth. She asks, "What would you say if I were a character in a story?" Jack smiles. "You would say leave me and go away." Valentine's indifference has disappointed Jack before, and it has done the same thing again. Now Jack has no other option. So he draws his sword and points it directly at his master, Valentine, and apologizes. "Forgive me, master, but this must be done." Jack charges his sword with his soul aura, and Valentine is shocked. Jack knows that breaking the chains will collapse the entire cave. But that's a price he's willing to pay. He cuts the chains made of dragon bones like an overpowered Virgil and finally saves Valentine from falling through the air. Julius Thin once promised to free her, but he simply went looking for milk and never returned. Jack isn't like that. This time, he won't abandon her. Just then, the cave begins to collapse. Jack loses his composure. He unleashes his ultimate move. Mountain is one of the 4 basic skills: wind, forest, fire, and mountain. He thrusts his sword into the ground, and all the rocks deflect around him. There's an explosion, a flash of light, and Valentine wonders, "Who is this kid?" Jack says, "I am your apprentice." He collapses, exhausted. It was considered impossible for someone so young to wield soul aura. But Jack learned this in the future. Jack wants to spend the next 13 years traveling the world with his master. Valentine touches Jack's face with her tiny palms. Her method is to find out if the other person is lying. After some time, she realizes that Jack is telling the truth. Now she trusts him. However, Valentine says that relationships are not forced. Jack replies, "But this was necessary, master." Even in pain, he continues to answer. And then Jack introduces himself. "My name is Jack, and in this life, I want to be your disciple." 5 days pass. Now they are in a city called A&L. Valentine doesn't speak a word the entire way. It seems she is thinking deeply about everything. Then finally she speaks. "I thought you were from the Thin Clan, because no one can control soul at such a young age." Jack says, "No, I'm not from them." Then Valentine comments on soul's power and stares at Jack as if expecting him to finish her sentence. Jack remembers that if he doesn't answer correctly, Valentine will beat him Eli style. So he quickly says, "Even among the masters, only a few can touch soul's power." The answer is correct. Valentine is happy Jack survived. Valentine feels the screams of countless people in Jack's soul. She asks, "How many people have you killed?" Jack laughs. "If I tell you the whole story of my past life, you might remain silent for 5 days." Valentine admits that Jack might have killed even more people than that. Then Valentine asks, "Why did you get this chance to live again?" Jack is lost in thought. He himself doesn't know. Maybe someone else reset time. There must have been a reason. This answer disappoints Valentine, but Jack also wonders, if the one who brought me back to life is real, then who will ever know? I'll never find him, and even if I don't, I'll keep living so I can spend more time with my master. His admiration for Jack is evident in his words, but now his next goal is to form a team. On previous occasions, when soldiers attacked or his master needed to be rescued, having someone on hand would have made things better. Jack decides he needs sidekicks. First, he goes to get his sword. Just then, a girl collides with him. The basket of flowers falls to the ground. The girl apologizes. Jack picks it up. Then, when Jack looks at her face, he realizes, this is my team. She could be the perfect member. Without further ado, Jack immediately went into recruitment mode. The girl was obviously surprised when Jack casually offered her to join his team. He then handed her a bag. When she opened it, it was filled with gold coins. The girl was stunned by such wealth. She refused. That's too much. I just need 1 shilling. Jack smiled and gave her a shilling. The girl gratefully handed him the entire basket of flowers and ran off. As she left, she stopped, bowed, and then disappeared. The girl was the perfect candidate for Jack's team. But Valentine recognized her from afar. She was a vampire. Even Jack was shocked to hear this. He hadn't chosen her because she was a vampire, but because he saw in her the potential to reach the 10th circle. Valentine told him the girl looked familiar. He had seen her before in a forest. Jack became even more interested. Valentine said, "You take the sword. Then I have to meet someone." And then a random piece of information. Vampires were the creatures that gave birth to the Drogs. They could have given a fair fight. Jack went to find the sword. The shopkeeper kept talking. This sword is the best. This is it. This is it. But Jack didn't care. Then Valentine told him that 10 years ago, vampires fought for freedom from dragons. The result was as expected. The vampires lost. But some vampires took advantage of that opportunity and escaped from the forest. This meant that the girl could be the offspring of those vampires. But Jack didn't care. He picked up the sword. Even if it was the sword that cut off King Arthur's nose hair. Jack didn't care. He paid and left the shop. Valentine asked, "Do you really need to do all this?" Jack said, "Innocent children are never guilty." Valentine looked at him suspiciously. "Are you saying this to console yourself?" Valentine's concern was justified. 400 years ago, he had promised the dragons and the leaders of the other creatures that they would not interfere in human affairs. That's when all the creatures went to the forest of monsters. But over time, all the leaders died. Only the dragons remained. They had lived for over 2,000 years. The promise still stood for them. They couldn't leave themselves, and they wouldn't let anyone else. Old Jack had discovered this very reason during the war and then wiped out the entire dragon race. A little while later, Valentine saw the girl again. She was shopping in the market. Seeing Valentine's seriousness, Jack took her hand. "Master, you don't need to feel guilty. I don't know everything, but I do know that I am your disciple." Hearing this, Valentine breathed a sigh of relief for the first time. But before leaving, he had a warning. "Look, Jack, never let that girl drink your blood." Jack was confused. "Why, master?" But Valentine simply remained silent. The girl hurried away with her things. Jack saw she was still a child and thought she should eat things suitable for children. Meanwhile, the little vampire girl was resonating with Jack's strange proposal. She even laughed that someone had been talking to that doll-like master and then come to include her in the team. Yet, it had been years since someone had treated her so gently. Now that girl was worried about her sick mother. She was carrying orc blood. As a child, her mother had told her never to drink human blood except for the blood her uncle would give her. A new layer had been added to Jack's story, and perhaps this meeting would change her fate in the future. The girl finally reaches home. She wonders to herself, will he come here again? Climbing the stairs, she calls out to her mother. A moment later, her mother's faint voice rings out, "We have a guest." The girl looks around, and then Jack suddenly appears. She collapses in fear. Valentine's grave tone. "Sit down, I say." The girl's mother, who has fallen ill, recognizes her. It's none other than the noble vampire Weaven the Royal. A little while later, Jack and the girl emerge. Her name is still unknown. She plays with some birds, and Jack watches silently. Then Jack looks up at the window. Even though he's keeping a watchful eye, he's also afraid something might go wrong. Across the room, Weaven looks at Valentine with her weak eyes. Seeing Valentine's doll-like state, she says, "You." Valentine Milrose, the same woman who imprisoned their tribe in the forest. Vivon was about to say something else when weakness caused her to cough and shiver. After a moment, she paused and realized, "You've become this doll now," Valentine said in a quiet voice. "It's a curse. I get human form only once a month." Valentine wanted to know why a vampire was leaving the forest and living outside. Vivon said in a cracked voice, "Are you trying to pity me?" Valentine didn't answer. A lot of time had passed. Valentine in old memories. She was so powerful that no one would dare to come near her. But V1 did not hate her. "If we were not thrown into the forest, humans would have destroyed us," she said. On Valentine's curiosity, Vivian tells her story. There are 5 dictators and 2 mysterious lords in the forest. Many years ago, some vampires wanted to break free from their rule. Shalette was a child then. But this attempt failed. All were killed. Only she and Shalette were left alive. A dragon took pity on them and left them alive. But she put a condition that you all will live in assembly and only swore, or you will drink cow's blood. The situation was bad. But Weaven agreed to this deal to save her daughter. Valentine finds this unacceptable. You are a vampire of royal blood and waiting to die in this condition. Outside, Charlotte was thinking, when will these people leave? My uncle is coming. He doesn't like guests. Jack's interest increases at the mention of uncle. He asks, "Who is your uncle?" Charlotte is shocked. "You want to cheat me?" Jack smiles. "I'm not a cheater, I'm just getting bored waiting." Finally, Charlotte agrees. The important thing is, he's very rich. He gave us this house. He brings us food every 3 days. Jack understands. This food is the pig and cow blood that Vivon had mentioned. Jack was about to explain something when suddenly a voice said, "Charlotte, this is your new guest." Charlotte's eyes lit up. Uncle Jack looked at the man and immediately understood. This is not a human, but a dragon. A moment later, Valentine spoke to Jack telepathically. "Can you hear me?" Jack said, "Yes, master. And there's another guest here too," Valentine ordered. "Charlotte and her, bring the man in." The dragon-like uncle was a little surprised as to why Jack was mumbling. But Jack said, "My master has called." He started climbing the stairs. In the room, Vivon called out to his daughter. As soon as she saw the dragon, she shuddered. But the dragon hadn't come to do anything. He had just come to hear your last words. Hearing this, Charlotte ran to her mother. Charlotte took out the orc blood she had bought for her mother. But Vivon refused to take it. She just smiled and said, "But this is your birthday gift. I really liked it." Then she apologizes softly. "I couldn't do anything for you." Hearing this, fear wells up in Charlotte's eyes. Jack thinks, there really wasn't a reason for us to come here. We just happened to meet Charlotte. But he knew it wouldn't be right to witness all this without a reason. So he decides to make one up. He steps forward and takes Vivon's hand. "Will you give me your daughter?" Vivon is stunned. Jack looks into her eyes and says, "Do you want your daughter to rule the world, or to take revenge on the drag queens? They punished the vampires." But Vivon calls her over. "You're different from others. Maybe because of Valentine." Then she says in a trembling voice, "I don't want revenge. I just want Charlotte to be happy." Her voice breaks. "Your name?" Jack bows his head and says, "Jack Valentine." Vivon's eyes begin to close. "Thank you, Charlotte. I'm sorry." "I love you so much," she says, and she falls asleep forever. Charlotte bursts into tears. Jack picks up Valentine and starts walking out. Just then, the dragon in the corner laughs. "Do you think that girl is with you? Will she stay? She's going to die too." He was making fun of the vampire. Jack had had enough. He attacked the dragon with his sword, bow, and arrow. The whole house shook, and the dragon fell out. But he stood calmly. It was very rude to attack someone suddenly. Now he too was ready for a fight. He was about to launch a major attack when Valentine's voice rang out. "Who are you?" The dragon was startled. He felt no objection. Then he saw Valentine's doll. 2 lords and 5 dragons lived in the forest. Valentine understood. This is not one of them. You are just 200 years old. Yes. Are you a dragon from the old days? The dragon's face flushed. How do you know that? Who are you? Jack was angered by his impudence. Put me down, Valentine said. Jack obeyed. Valentine looked him straight in the eyes. I am Valentine Milrose. The dragon's breath stopped. Valentine, the immortal necromancer, he muttered. That title seems silly to me now, Valentine said reluctantly. The dragon didn't believe it. Then Valentine said 2 names, Bahamut Volet. The dragon trembled. These names were known only to those who knew them. The dragon lords had met face to face. Now he had to admit she was indeed Valentine. But her question still remained. How are you still alive? But it didn't matter. He said, I have to kill Charlotte. Valentine ordered, Get out of here. The dragon laughed. You have no right. The dragons had shown mercy to everyone else. Valentine's eyes held a cold silence. I was the one who showed mercy, not you arrogant worms. Vacus shouted angrily. Old woman, stop talking nonsense. Jack's patience snapped. Listen, you magical lizard, you've talked too much now. Vacus pounced. It rushed at Jack, clawing at him. Jack nimbly dodged and kicked him hard in the jaw. The dragon sank into the wall. Jack went to him and lifted his chin with his foot. This is my lesson for disrespecting my master. The dragon flinched. Jack said, Shut up before you die. But Vacus grabbed his leg and threw him into the house. Jack emerged from the smoke. His clothes were ruined. He picked up Charlotte. Look, the one you call uncle. It was the same dragon who killed the vampire. Maybe even Charlotte's father, whom she never even saw. And on top of that, he played with her mother until she died. This was unbearable for Charlotte. But Jack said he had her mother's permission to take care of Charlotte. And as he drew his sword, he said, Your answer matters most to me. Then Jack leaped into the air, ready to attack with all his might. Now the battle between an OP second circle user and a 200-year-old lizard was about to begin. Jack made the first move, but Vacus nimbly jumped back. A few moments later, the two charged towards each other again, swords locked. They traded blow after blow. After a brief confrontation, Vacus began to think that Jack wasn't a particularly powerful mana user. But before he could finish his sentence, a chunk of his hair fell down. This was Jack's intention. The hair was irritating him. Now the dragon was furious. He used a spell called Wind Cutter. But Jack stopped it as if it were a simple breeze. Vacus couldn't believe it. He couldn't even imagine a mere human being stopping a dragon's magic like that. Jack jumped into the air, grabbed his face, and slammed it into the ground, beating Jack to death. Suddenly, he remembered. Vacus was the son of Luca Machiavelli, one of the 5 dragon lords. Vacus was shocked to hear this. Jack explained that in his past life, he had beheaded his father. Vacus was lost in thought. Who is this? Jack said with a straight face, I am a disciple of Valentine, the very person you were insulting. Vacus now believed he was fighting no ordinary boy. Jack, being human, had broken the dragon's spell. It was nothing short of miraculous. Jack pointed his sword at him. 5 seconds. Get on your knees and apologize, or you'll be damned. I'll destroy you too, just like you destroyed others. Vacus trembled. Jack began a countdown. 5, 4, 3, and then 1. Vacus suddenly spread his wings and flew away. Now he had no choice but to flee. Jack hadn't expected him to escape like that, but he had other ways to stop him. He prepared another attack. Vacus turned back in fear. It seemed Jack was about to launch an ICBM. This was Soul Aura's next skill, Wind. Vacus' life drained away. A shadowy glimpse of Jack stalking him appeared before his eyes. Vacus Jungle. I fell. This time his defeat was certain. As Jack's shadow moved to catch him, The real Jack regained consciousness in a room. Jack looked around. He had never seen this room before. Just then Ron entered the room. He was sad that his master was lying unconscious, but he was shocked to see Jack awake. Ron ran to him and asked, "Master, do you remember me?" Jack nodded. "Yes, step back. Tell me, why are you with me? And what is this place?" Ron was startled. Jack was worried about Charlotte and Valentine. He asked, "Where are they?" "Is it?" Ron said. "Charlotte is fine. She's been cleaned up and put to sleep in the other room." She was very tired, and Ron pointed to the doll. Valentine's doll was sitting on a chair. Jack was delighted to see it. Ron couldn't believe a doll could talk. Jack thought to himself, "It seems Master is angry with me." But Valentine said in a stern voice, "I'm not angry." Watching their conversation, Ron wondered, "Who is this doll?" Jack said, "It's my master." Ron saw how seriously Jack was speaking, so he silently nodded in agreement. Then Jack said, "Now tell me what happened here in the last 3 days." Ron explained everything. The guards who had traveled with Jack were found dead. When House Valenti learned of this, they sent a knight to investigate. The knight followed Jack because he believed he might tell the truth. Some people in Arabala village also reported seeing Jack nearby. Furthermore, rumors circulated that Jack had launched a devastating wind attack near Anal Dewey. He then lay unconscious and severely injured. He was taken to a temple where he was fed 3 high-quality strawberry-flavored potions. Jack's favorite flavor was strawberry. But right now, there was no time to think about that. He asked Ron, "Why aren't you protecting Elizabeth like you promised?" Ron explained, "The Marquis told him not to come because I know you too well. The Marquis sent me." Jack was shocked to hear this. "My father really is as stupid as I thought." Just then, a red-haired knight suddenly entered the room. Gonzalez was the deputy commander of the Iron Blood Order. Gonzalez warned, "Don't play any tricks on Charlotte." Ron was enraged by this, but Jack calmed him down. "Wait, I want to hear the nonsense of this." Gonzalez began his interrogation. Jack remembered that he had been given 3 top-tier portions, so he decided, "I'll give Gonzalez 3 chances to keep his cool." Now Jack stared him straight in the eye. For the first time, Gonzalez felt something had changed in Jack. He asked, "What happened to you?" Jack told him everything. The guards had been ordered to break my bones. Every day during the 4-day journey, they would break my bones and then fix them. Gonzalez's face became strange. Jack asked, "Why is this face twisted?" as if he was hearing it for the first time. But Gonzalez still tried to control himself. He didn't know that he had reached strike 2. Jack continued, "Knight Regent of the 6th Circle threatened. He will break my forbidden circle." Ron felt uneasy listening to Jack. Jack finished the story. "I killed them all." Gonzalez was shocked. Jack got up from the bed and said, "I killed them all." Now Gonzalez was lost in thought. This attack hadn't come from outside. It had been done by the same kid everyone considered worthless. But the biggest question was, how did Jack do this? Gonzalez warned again in a stern tone, "Control your voice." Ron grabbed his hand. "That's enough." But Gonzalez shook him off. "You're just a servant." That was strike 3. Jack's patience broke. He punched Gonzalez so hard that he fell down on the spot. Jack felt dizzy. He fell on the bed. Ron ran to him. Jack said, "You know that 7?" He was a circle user. Then he looked Ron in the eye. "You always think of yourself as a weak servant. Do you still want to do that?" Jack grabbed his collar. "Not anymore. I should have understood sooner. I shouldn't let the people who care about me be insulted like this." Ron listened to him. "Maybe I didn't think that before," Jack said softly, "but now it seems right to me." Ron looked at Gonzalez again. "How long will it take to teach him a lesson?" Jack asked. "Just a minute," Ron said. Jack gave a cold smile. "Start now." Ron. He showed how dangerous he really was. He was an expert not only in cooking, but also in cooking the enemy. He started beating Gonzalez badly. Gonzalez was no longer the deputy commander, but the deputy punching bag. He was thrashing around, but Ron was dodging the blows as easily as a butterfly. The entire palace staff gathered and watched this spectacle. Could a servant be like this? Jack watched Ron's moves. Everything seemed familiar to him. Jack had seen Ron fight before, but then he only knew how to use fora and spells. He used it. After all, he was a ninth circle mage. That meant his true strength should have been in magic, not melee combat. Yet, he defeated Gonzalez like he was a mere guard. Jack was hooked. Ron must have had considerable fighting experience. Even if Ron was a spy for the Thulan Empire, Jack couldn't even kill him. Now, back in the fight, seeing Gonzalez's precarious condition, he drew his sword and rushed to attack Ron. But Ron was prepared. He broke Gonzalez's nose with a direct knee strike. Jack saw Ron's agility and thought, whoever has used his strength has done it. He spent half his life putting up with my nonsense. How strong must his heart be? Jack called out to Ron. It's taking a long time to settle this. As soon as Ron diverted his attention, Gonzalez made a last-ditch effort. But one punch from Ron landed and it was over. The entire fight took just 1 minute and 12 seconds. Jack quipped, "You need some practice." Then he glared at the two guards standing nearby. Stop staring. They returned to their duties in fear. Now Jack grabbed the unconscious Gonzalez's hair and said, "Let's chat a little." Gonzalez was the Marquis. He was a favorite knight, the third strongest warrior of Housewater, and right now he was lying face down on the ground. Jack asked, "Do you want to become an 8th circle user?" Even the commander, Ganges, was surprised at what kind of offer this was. But before listening to Jack's terms, Ron looked at Valentine. Valentine asked directly, without preamble, "You were connected to the Davin." Ron's face went pale. Valentine looked at him. "You became a 9th circle user 20 years ago, right? So young, so powerful, you could even control spirits." Ron said softly, "Yes, 19 years old. It's done. Ever since I stepped into the Marquis mansion, I haven't used mana. Just once, to find Jack." Valentine fell silent. Ron lowered his eyes. "I don't regret anything that happened. I just want to serve my master," Valentine thought to himself. A warrior who gave up all his strength just for Jack. Jack wasn't really paying attention to the conversation. If he had, he would have asked, "What's the Dawan?" But right now, his attention was on Gonzalez. He pulled his hair and said, "Let me ask you one last time. I want to become a commander." Gonzalez was in a bad state. He was shaking, almost about to say anything. That's when Jack grabbed his chest. Then he spread his mana throughout Gonzalez's body. Gonzalez felt something strange. 7 mana circles were circling around his heart. Jack's energy now reached them. Before Gonzalez could understand, Jack said, "Don't move." Then he started fiddling with his mana circles. A few moments later, there was a small explosion. Gonzalez, terrified, prayed to survive. After a while, everything calmed down. He checked his energy. Now he had 8 mana circles, but Jack told him it would only last 3 or 5 months. Gonzalez was even more confused. "Gon, who are you, after all?" But he didn't have the courage to ask questions. Jack said in a cold voice, "Now you will obey my orders. If you don't, you will face a death so painful you can't even imagine." Gonzalez's face turned pale. After all, there stood the man rumored to have mastered dark magic. Now let's go back a moment, to the time when Jack had beaten up Felon and was imprisoned. Marquis Veladier had spread a rumor that Jack had used dark magic. But it wasn't a rumor, it was the truth. Now Gonzalez saw it with his own eyes. Jack glared at him and said, "Get on your knees," leaving Gonzalez no choice. Jack's first task was to return to Weller Manor and report that he hadn't heard from Jack. Gonzalez hesitantly agreed. Jack announced his next mission: kill 40 of Husma's witches in 3 months. This would include the Marquis's loyal knights. Gonzalez's face went pale, but he couldn't refuse. After all, Jack hadn't given him the 8th mana circle for nothing. Jack stood up and slowly said, "I'm going to be a manual." He said, "There's no need to worry. Just follow my orders, everything will be fine." Then he added sarcastically, "If you need more power, you'll get it." But Gonzalez was still trembling. After all, this was the man who had kept him alive and dead. Jack remembered the way Ron had beaten Gonzalez. He felt like this fellow must have committed some past sin. That's why he would now have to live the life of a servant. Hearing Ron's servant shattered all Gonzalez's hopes. Jack said, "Give me a daily report from Ron." With that, he led Gonzalez out of the room. Jack thought the first model was stupid and dead. But maybe Model 2 would be useful. Jack then went to Ron. He had finished talking to Valentine. Now everything was set. Jack felt hungry, but Ron interrupted. "You'll go out dressed like a hospital patient." Ron had already prepared clothes for Jack. Jack smiled and said, "You always worry about me." "Thank you." Just as Jack was about to leave, the door opened. He thought Gonzalez had returned, but someone ran and hugged him. It was Charlotte, crying. She hugged him. She was afraid that Jack was dead. Jack looked at Ron and said, "I'll be out for a while," and told Ron, "Cook a good meal like you always do." Ron bowed and accepted the order. Charlotte hadn't yet drunk any blood. Still, her grip was so strong that Jack almost suffocated. Somehow, they managed to escape that deadly embrace. Jack apologized to Charlotte. "I destroyed your home." Charlotte wiped her tears. "It doesn't matter. Mother is no more. There's no point in staying at home." Saying this, she started crying again. Jack held her hand. "Hold it," she said softly. "You know my mother died too. I was so young I don't even remember her face. But Ron and my master supported me, and I was able to be a little happy." With that, Jack made a cut on his wrist with mana and put the blood in Charlotte's mouth. Yes, he let her drink his blood. Charlotte's teeth sank into his wrist. She was so hungry. Jack thought, really, how weak this girl had become. As soon as she drank the blood and removed her mouth, her condition improved instantly. That was typical of vampires. As soon as they found the right blood, they became as powerful as dragons. Charlotte couldn't believe Jack had done this, but now she felt much better. She bowed and said, "Thank you." Jack asked, "Now tell me, how did you like this example of your protector's strength?" Charlotte smiled and said, "It was a little scary, but it felt good too." Then she bowed her head and said softly, "My lord." But Jack didn't like Charlotte calling him "my lord." He said, "You'll be working for me now, so call me boss." Charlotte had no problem with that. After a while, Jack went inside to enjoy the feast. He told Ron that he had defeated a dragon. Ron was shocked to hear this. It was exactly the reaction Jack had expected. In fact, by the time a dragon is 10 years old, it has already formed 4 mana circles, and by 50, it reaches master level. A dragon's special power is incarnation. In this, it transforms its giant body into a normal human form. But this is not the same as polymorph. Incarnation brings the dragon's physical strength to its peak. Jack turned away from his vegetables and thought, if Vex had been a little more careful, he could have defeated him. It would have been difficult. But Jack finally scared him away, and he died. Ron couldn't digest what Jack was saying. But Jack knew that no sane person would believe this story. If the fire and mercenaries found out, they would retaliate. But Ron listened to Jack without a doubt. Jack felt Ron knew a lot. He knew that the dragon was still alive. Ron thought Jack would know everything because of time travel. But Jack only knew that Ron had died suddenly in his past life. Ron said that if I told him everything, it would be very serious. It would be a long story. But Jack flatly refused. Everyone has secrets. Then a question came to Jack's mind. He asked Ron, "Do you have any connection to the Thulan Empire, or are you a spy?" Ron immediately flatly denied it. Jack smiled and said, "Okay, have a nice day." He had been suspicious for a moment, but now he was relieved. Jack didn't want Ron to be a burden. Seeing the smile on Ron's face, Jack knew his point had been made. Now Jack's next plan was to expand his mana circles. In his current state, Solaris, his body would give out as soon as it was used, so he needed his old strength back so he could withstand it. But he put that task on hold for now. First, he had to get to the academy. Just then, Valentine arrived, and Jack was shocked. She said, "You use Dark Halter, right?" Jack nodded. Dark Halter was a dark magic spell known only to Valentine and Jack. In fact, Valentine had created this spell herself. During the war, she would use it on enemies. It would force a mana circle and place a mana in it. A promise was made. If the promise was broken, the person would explode into ashes. This was the dangerous magic that had brought Valentine infamy. Valentine asked, "What promise did you make in the circle of Ganges?" Jack replied, "It was just insurance for Ron and my sister, Elizabeth." Ron was touched to hear that his master cared for him. But Jack didn't like this emotional drama. Just then, Shalette arrived. She had fled from all the maids and come seeking shelter. She had come at the right time. Jack gestured for her to sit. Ron said, "Should I cook for you?" But Shalette said, "No, I'm already full." Ron couldn't understand what Shalette had eaten. Jack's smile was telling. He knew. Then he told him Shalette would also be going to the academy. So Jack asked Ron, "Would that be possible?" Ron said, "I'm just a lowly servant." Although he said lowly, his abilities were no ordinary thing. Still, Jack wondered, does this man really know nothing? Ron felt a little uneasy and said, "I have no right to say anything." Jack decided that if Ron didn't know anything, he would be fine. "If he tells me, he'll handle it himself," Ron advised. It's not right to threaten people. But looking at Jack, it didn't seem like he was going to stop. Just then, Charlotte jumped up from her seat. "I'll go to the academy too." After all, every child deserves an education, and Charlotte has no shortage of talent. Even though she didn't have any mana circles yet, Jack knew that with proper training, she could acquire 10 mana circles. She could even use soul ore. She would have to get an admission letter from Gonzalez. The only problem was her age. The academy, the minimum age requirement was 14. Charlotte was only 11. So Jack decided to enroll her, no matter what. A few days later, Jack and his group arrived at the academy. Ron had already packed Jack's essentials. Jack expressed his gratitude. Ron was now ready to return. But Jack said, "Give me a job. Take care of any family problems." Ron understood. Jack wanted to focus completely on the academy. Besides, Jack didn't trust Ganges. He thought he was stupid and would leave when his job was done. "I will destroy him." Jack's real goal was to weaken the power of Marquis Voltaire. That is, to eliminate the influence of House Mantis and the elders of Voltaire. Regarding Elizabeth, he said, "She's very innocent. I don't want her to become like me, but it's important to nudge her in the right direction to some extent." Ron said, "You've really changed." The academy doors opened, and Jack entered. Valentine said, "Your servant is very loyal." Jack said, "He's not just a servant, he's also a good person." Valentine felt a little embarrassed after hearing this. Charlotte looked around. She was amazed by the sight. It was her first time seeing such a large place. Just then, a maid came and said, "The headmaster is waiting for you." Charlotte immediately hid behind Jack. Jack went to see the headmaster. The headmaster had heard all his stories. The ruined house, the bleeding child, and those horrific rumors. Jack looked around the room carefully. It had been many years since he had set foot in this office. The headmaster's name was Raymond Einhard Eisenblay. He had once been the Duke of House Eisenblay. Now, his son had taken over the position, and he himself had become headmaster of the academy. Jack remembered the day when he had come here for the first time. His body was covered in wounds, and his heart was filled with fear. Raymond had said, "It's the way your family is. I think your father or brother will kill you before you reach adulthood." Jack asked, "What should I do now?" The headmaster placed a hand on his head and said, "You'll have to find that answer yourself." Still, he was given a single room and some special privileges. But Jack wasn't the frightened child he used to be. He looked at the headmaster and said, "Old man, I want to make a deal." Raymond was surprised by his confidence. Jack said, "Once I've repaid your debt. Now I need a favor." Rammel understood that Jack had completely changed in this 1 month. He had never seen him again. This was the truth about the headmaster. Jack, on the other hand, hadn't seen him for 20 years. They say 2 eras change in 20 years. That much time is enough to change someone's destiny. Rommel found Jack's words interesting. He asked, "How will you save my life?" In Jack's memories, the Thulan Empire crushed the Thizan kingdom in 1 month. Thizan tried his best, but Thulan had 30 masters. Most dragons had become hybrids. They also had over 1,000 mana users above the 7th circle. Thizan had only 2 masters and barely a dozen higher-level users. It was clear they could never win this war. Jack still thought it was crazy that even Thulan took a month. If he had been the commander, he could have finished everything in 3 days. But Thizan held out for a month because the headmaster had sacrificed his life. Jack said that at that time, Rommel had formed a magic corps of 700 soldiers and suddenly attacked the front. If everything had gone well, Thizan too, it would have lasted a month longer. But the world wasn't perfect. Rommel was betrayed and killed by his own most trusted man. That traitor's name was Brutus. Rommel was shocked when Jack mentioned this name. He interrupted, "Don't call the instructor by his first name." Jack said, "I don't care. He's a spy for the Thulan Empire. Brutus Marco, a knight of the 6th circle, assistant swordsmanship instructor, and loyal to House Assemble, is all a sham." Rommel told him not to act on what he heard. But Jack didn't care. He warned, "If you don't listen to me, you'll regret it." "Rommel," he said, "go now." Jack took a crest from his pocket and placed it on the table. "I stand by my word. Something's going to happen." Then he said, "Call Brutus here." A little while later, Brutus arrived at the office. Jack got to the point. "Thank you. Don't give the Thulans any more news." Brutus was stunned. "What are you talking about?" Brutus recognized Jack. This is the same spoiled nobleman, Sajada, who was injured in the accident. He seems to have lost his mind. He said, "The headmaster may forgive you, but I won't. You'll be punished for false accusations." Jack's patience ran out. He took the crust in his hand and punched Brutus squarely in the face. Not just at a spy, but at his blabbering. Brutus stumbled and fell against the furniture. Rommel watched. Before Brutus could understand anything, Jack pounced again. Brutus tried to counterattack. He threw a right punch. "Now you've attacked the instructor." But such moves were child's play for Jack. He dodged the blow easily. Brutus was stunned. Jack could clearly see his 6-month circles, but even they had weaknesses. Jack landed a powerful punch to Brutus's stomach. Brutus fell against the furniture. "Phil!" Rommel's son remained. Jack broke the crest. "I hope everyone else in the office is safe." Jack now approached the man, who was still lying on the ground, gasping for breath. He said, "Now admit it, confess it yourself." But Brutus continued the drama. Jack took the next step. He placed his hand on Brutus's chest. He felt 6 mana circles. Each one must have taken years of hard work to create. Jack was determined. "For every false answer, I will break 1 circle." Brutus's soul trembled. He didn't even have time to think. The first question came. Jack asked, "Are you from the Thulan Empire? Are you a spy?" A shiver ran down Brutus's spine. But he finally refused. This wasn't the answer Jack wanted. He'd just broken a mana circle. Now Brutus was the user of the 5th circle. Jack asked the same question again. Brutus remained silent this time. Jack thought perhaps he didn't have the courage to tell the truth. Usually, if someone's mana circle is broken, it can be repaired with great effort. But Jack had made things different. He had put his own mana into Brutus's heart. Now, no matter how hard he tried, he would never be able to create a new circle. Jack said, "Now, you'll never be able to draw a circle again, you clown." But he offered hope. He told Brutus there was a way to recreate the circle. That method was the Thulan dragon part infusion process. Brutus was shocked. "How do you know this?" Jack thought he was moving in the right direction. Fear was clearly visible on Brutus's face. He asked, "How did you find out about Thulan's secret research?" Jack felt as if he had found a gold mine. But Brutus wasn't going to get an answer. Jack rewrote the mantra and destroyed the remaining circles. Now Brutus was completely free. Ruined. All his strength gone. Jack turned to Rommel. "I saved your life. Now you owe me a favor." Brutus was still lying on the ground muttering, "Thulan will not let you go." He was blabbering, "The Thulan Empire will destroy everything for you." Jack kicked him and shut his mouth. The second phase was over. Jack apologized to Rommel. He had increased the cleaning hassle. Rommel was surprised by this change in Jack. But Jack said, "A lot has changed in the last 1 month." Rommel did not ask any more questions. But he definitely asked one thing. "How did you find out all this?" "The spy's identity and the dragon-human experiments." Jack said, "Remember our deal first." Jack knew there were clear signs of war brewing in the Thulan Empire. There was a power struggle going on. On one side was the moderate party of the Second Prince. On the other side was the hard-line party of the Crown Prince. In the end, the hard-line party won, and Thulan unified the entire continent. Jack said, "I spent 10 years in the mountains with the Master. Even I don't know all the details." He handed Brutus over to Rommel. "If you want, get more information from him. It will be beneficial for you and the king too." Rommel was a little startled. "King," Jack said. "So should I call him by his real name?" But he said it clearly. "Now I'm wondering, how does a Sixth Circle member know so much?" By now, the half-dragon experiment had been completed on animals and was about to be conducted on humans. Jack knew from his past life and some documents that this experiment was as secret as Area 51 in Thulan. Anyway, Jack wanted not one but 2 favors from Rommel, because the headmaster was rich. The first demand was a single villa near the academy with a garden. Rommel reminded him, "A lonely villa. Do you know the rule? Every student has to live in the dormitory?" Jack said, "There are exceptions to every rule." Rommel had once taught him this too. Then Jack made another request. Admit a girl to the academy in the first year. But this semester was the second, and students were only admitted in the first semester. Jack knew Rommel could work anything. Rommel guessed if that girl was the same pale girl sitting outside. "That is, Shalat." Rommel asked, What is your relation with him?" Jack said, I am his new benefactor." Rommel let out a long sigh. "It's okay, brother." Jack did not understand the reason for his sigh. After a while, Jack came out. Charlotte jumped with joy. "Will this be my new school?" Jack placed his hand on her head. "Yes, this will be your school now." Charlotte became very happy. But within a few seconds, her face fell. Jack asked, "Why are you sad now?" Charlotte said, "I never thought that I would go to the academy. Actually, this place was only for humans, and we know that he is not a human." Jack asked, "Are you ashamed of being a vampire?" Charlotte flatly denied. Jack felt her fate was tragic. Her family was a royal house that ruled for generations. The name itself tells you it was the royal house of vampires. But now most of them have died. Her father and her mother, Vivian, were the last ones. But everyone saw their end too. Jack held her hand. "Whatever happens, you should be proud. No matter who you are Charlotte du Royal, and I will still keep my promise, whether you want to be queen or rebuild your clan. I'm always with you." Charlotte was a little nervous, but thanked Jack. Her mother used to say that nothing in this world is free. Charlotte said, "I don't know. What can I do for you?" Jack smiled. "Everything is fine. I'll help you when the time comes." Charlotte promised, "I'll help you whenever you ask." Now everything seemed fine. Jack said, Let's take a walk. It will take time for our manor to be ready. A while ago, Rommel had told Jack that Chalet's admission would be done today or tomorrow. The manor will also be ready in 2 hours. But managing the large villa alone was difficult. Rommel suggested I send some servants. Jack thought it was just an excuse. Rommel wanted to keep an eye on me, but she agreed. Jack saw Valentine smiling. He wondered why she was so proud. Valentine said, "What you said to Charlotte was nice. It seems you understand the value of recognition. I thought you were just a pervert, but it's nice to see this side of you." Jack said, "I'll take it as a compliment." A little distance away, a boy was training hard. Jack thought, "I don't know. What do you want?" But Valentine pulled his ear. "Let's see him." Jack had to agree. They all sat down. Jack saw the boy was about 17 years old and had a good physique. Jack inspected his mana. He was surprised. It was true. The boy only had second circle strength and could achieve a fourth circle at most. Jack was disappointed. Such mid-level strength. Jack had no fear that Valentine would take him as her disciple, but he asked, "Then why are you interested in him?" Valentine knew the boy's mana capacity was useless, but she had invested in him. "I saw something else." Valentine asked Jack, "Tell me, why did I take an interest in that boy?" Jack thinks, maybe his physique, but he's completely wrong. Sometime later, Charlotte notices that the boy is training very hard. He looks as if he might collapse any moment. He has bruises all over his body. Jack also notices. Valentine asks again, "Now you understand?" Jack looks again and notes that his mana circle was once broken, and most shockingly, he recreated it. Jack is amazed because recreating a broken mana circle is nearly impossible. It happens. Valentine tells him he has strong willpower. She wants to add something more, but stops short. But Jack understands the real point. Dark magic has a foundation: death, destruction, resentment, and revenge. This boy has been able to regenerate the circle not just with his willpower, but also with his hatred. Jack decides to meet him. Jack goes to him. The boy asks, "What do you want?" Jack offers some friendly advice. "The way you hold the sword is wrong. Improve your footwork and don't worry too much about the broken mana circle. Otherwise, the defense will be. He must be weak." The boy is shocked. "How do you know this?" Jack says, "I am just an observant guy." Then he asks, "Is there beating based on body type here?" The boy gets even more nervous. Jack gives him a grape-flavored portion. Why? Just like that. Actually, Jack stole it from Ganges. Now he has everything. Then Jack asks, "What is your name?" The boy hesitates a bit and says, "Thanos, but less purple." Jack laughs and says, "Recover the Infinity Stones. Good luck." Then he starts leaving. Thanos asks, "Are you?" "Who?" Jack turns and says, "Jack Valtier," and walks away. Charlotte still thinks Jack is cool. Jack's acting doesn't resonate much with Valentine. But Charlotte's comment cheers Jack up. Thanos watches from a distance, and suddenly his mind loads into a 999 ping. It was Jack Valtier. Rumors had it. The eldest of House Valenti, all zeros in his first semester's subjects at West Academy, yet still a legend. A little while later, Jack arrives at a place called Anul Dewey, a guest mansion near the academy. It's for those special. It's for people house and respects. Rommel has sent some maids to care for Jack. Jack asks, "What's your name?" The answer is John Doe. Jack laughs. That name was a placeholder for Dynastismo, the leader of the fire and mercenaries. Jack likes the manor, but he notes that it's for special people. Is Rommel interfering in House Weller's succession fight? Jack then notices that John Tano is a little upset, but he ignores his emotions because Jack himself says, "Your behavior is rude." Yes. John is shocked. "What did I do?" Jack replies, "You're hiding your true identity by using polymorph." John is shocked. "How did you know that?" Jack lets him go, but asks why there are so many high-level mana users in such a small area. He suspects they might all be spies. Jack then asks, "Are you a spy?" John's true identity begins to emerge. He stops his mana flow because Headmaster Rommel is showing so much interest in Jack. John now goes to meet Jack himself. That's when we learn his real name. It turns out, Bellamy Craig was the head of the Magician's Tower in the Thin Kingdom back in the past when the war between Thulin and Ain broke out. Bellamy was the one who stood with Romuald to the end. Now Bellamy asks, "How did you figure out my polymorphism?" Jack arrogantly says, "I figured it all out after killing a polymorph dragon. Its name started with a V." Bellamy is annoyed by Jack's attitude. "Give me some respect. I'm the head of the Magician's Tower and the dean of the magic department." Jack says, "If you wanted respect, you wouldn't have done such ridiculous testing." Bellamy accepts. He apologizes and ends the conversation. But he sees something special in Jack, so he offers to make Jack his apprentice. Jack's face shows a deep disapproval because he already has a master. Bellamy explains, "I tried to teach Elizabeth too, but she refused." But seeing Jack's potential, he refuses. Bellamy grabs Jack's hand. "Be my apprentice. I will never give up." Jack swears, "I don't want another master." Just then, Valentine speaks up. "Your name is." "What is it?" Bellamy is perplexed. "How does this doll speak?" Jack introduces him to Valentine. This is the same Valentine who created Dark Halter and is the head of Magician's Tower. Valentine observes Bellamy's aura. "You could have become a 10th circle user soon, but someone attacked you." Bellamy is stunned. "How do you know?" Valentine tells him the 10th circle marks are clearly visible in his mind. She says, "Don't give up. You may be old, but you can still grow." Magician's Tower's name shines because of those who don't give up. Bellamy agrees, as if he is listening to a self-help podcast. He asks, "Who are you?" Valentine smiles. "If you just learn a relic of the past, you will regret it." Jack says, "Come, Shallot is waiting." Bellamy then leaves after promising to meet Rommel. As soon as Bellamy leaves, Jack thinks what a wonderful thing. The head of the tower himself has come to meet him. No worries about surveillance. Keep watching as much as I want. Valentine becomes serious. This world is so unfair. No matter how much someone works hard, if there is no potential, then nothing. And some people get everything by birth. Jack gets irritated. "You won't teach me anything." Valentine laughs. "You've even learned Dark Halter. There's nothing left to teach." In fact, Dark Halter was the last spell Valentine taught Jack in his past life. Jack still can't believe it. This man came to recruit me. But Bellamy's surveillance still doesn't bother him. Bellamy glances at Jack as he leaves. A colleague asks, "What are you thinking?" He says, "The headmaster told me something." Actually, Rommel and Bellamy had discussed Jack. Rommel says he caught a spy and he took down a 6th circle user in one blow. But he's only a 2nd circle user. Bellamy was worried. A boy with so much power might become a threat somewhere else. Rommel smiled. "You're worrying too much. He's brought a little girl to the academy. She wants to study. Maybe this boy will be our hope against the Thulin Empire." Bellamy wondered if Headmaster Rommel was right. There was something special about Jack, but still, there was a sense of unease in his heart. Rommel had said, "Just look at Jack. You'll understand for yourself." Giving up, Bellamy went to the manor to meet Jack. Determined. Now in the present, Bellamy is standing outside the manor, laughing. A colleague asks, "Why are you laughing?" He lies. "I remembered some joke." Now, inside the manor, Jack inspects his new staff. There are 5 guards, a cook, and some maids. Jack addresses everyone. "Listen, I want steak 3 times a day. The best kind. And some great vegetables too." The guard's eyes widen. Then Jack says, "I also want strawberries and tomato juice every day." Jack knows that no one can compete with Ron's cooking. He glances at the cook. His name is Guys, and he looks exhausted, as if his soul has departed. Jack leaves him. He calls the rest of the guards, the quintet. because he doesn't care to remember their names. Jack explains, "You all received training from the headmaster." "I know." Everyone is surprised. "How do you know?" Jack smiles. "Your mana circles were broken." "I saw it." The guards are left stunned. Jack gives them the example of Thanos. "He's so hardworking without any talent. You should learn something too." A guard. He asks, "Did the headmaster tell you in advance?" Jack doesn't answer. Just then Charlotte comes running in. Boss Manor is so big. Jack takes her to see the manor. Jack inherited the manor on August 9th. Classes are to begin on August 16th. Today is the 14th. He spent the last 5 days relaxing, shopping with Charlotte, partying, eating great food, and watching plays with Master. Jack thinks, "This is the most relaxing time of my life." But two things are constantly running through his mind. First, he has to continue his training. No matter what, one doesn't easily forget how to use mana or fight, but fitness is essential. Jack starts running, and Charlotte follows close behind. But neither can catch up with Jack. Both stop, exhausted. Charlotte asks, "Are you going to meet someone?" Jack says, "Yes." That's the second thing on Jack's mind. Jack goes to see Tanus. He's training as usual. He's been doing this for the past 5 days, Jack thinks. Doesn't he ever get tired? Slowly, Jack begins to believe it. This boy, despite having no talent, is a great athlete at the academy. He's the hardest working student. But then Jack notices his injuries. They grow deeper every day. Jack calls out to him, "Why is your condition worsening every day?" Tanos is shocked. Jack continues, "Did you use the potion I gave you?" There's a hint of concern hidden in his question, but his voice retains the same cold, stern tone. Tanos is about to say something. Jack hands Tanos another potion, but Tanos' face is somewhat confused. He says, "One of these costs 40 gold. I'll pay you back." "I want to." Jack can see his pain. His bones are broken. His body is deeply wounded. He's been training through all this for the past 5 days. Jack admits that this is beyond the power of ordinary people. Tanos resumes his sword practice. Valentine had been watching silently. Now she says, "You should understand how much hatred and ambition he holds in his heart." Jack can see it clearly too. Valentine thinks this is all holding back his progress. But for Jack, it meant only this much. "Master, you've been watching for so long. Are you going to recruit him? Do you intend to or not?" Jack calls out to Tanus again. "Why are you learning swordsmanship?" Tanus replies, "My goal is to become the greatest swordsman in the entire continent." Jack bursts out laughing. Tanus thinks he's also making fun of me, but Jack says, "No, I'm not laughing at your dream. Now I understand your ambition." Then Jack goes to him and asks, "Would you like to become Chickling number 3? Charlotte, standing at a distance, is happily running towards them with water, but looking at her, it seems as if she is deep in the ocean. They're talking. Tanos is startled. "Did you say Chickling?" Jack repeats, "Yes, Chickling." Tanos' gut tells him this can't be a good thing. Jack, understanding his situation, changes the word. Then let's say freeloader. But Tanos is now completely confused. He asks, "Are you asking me to become Vasile?" Jack says something like that. Tanos, frightened, says, "I'm just a common man, poor. I have nothing. I'm not worthy." But Jack doesn't care. Tanos knew the stories of House Voltaire, but Jack didn't know about them. It was different. Finally, Tanos says, "Leave me, I'm not worthy of you." Jack reminds him of his dream, to become the greatest swordsman. "Imagine if you become my Vasile. I'll be able to say I have the greatest swordsman on the continent. But if you consider yourself worthless, it means you've accepted that dream will never come true." After a moment of silence, Tanos says, "I have neither talent nor mana." Jack interrupts him, "You're looking wrong. You have something far greater than talent and mana." Tanos is astonished. What Jack says is that there are thousands of people in the world who were born with talent, but they didn't do anything. Even a farmer can be born with tremendous mana potential, but live an ordinary life all his life. And I was born with great mana potential, but I didn't realize it until I met Valentine. Only then did my perspective change. Jack remembers the first time he saw Mana floating in the air. It was as if a magic circle had formed around her. But until then, he had no idea how talented he was. That's why he never wanted to work hard. She didn't wake up. Thanos had no natural talent, but he had something else, an incredible capacity for hard work. Very few people train to the bone. Jack counsels him. Don't underestimate yourself. In my opinion, you're quite talented. Thanos is about to say something when an unfamiliar voice interrupts him. Jack turns and sees 3 other boys standing there. The semester hasn't even started yet. So what are these guys doing here? Seeing their leader, Jack remembers his older brother and feels a shiver. Just then, Thanos tells Jack to leave. The leader threatens Thanos. I told you not to talk to anyone. Now you'll get beaten. Thanos again pleads with Jack to leave, but Jack's gaze falls on his wounds. Now it's clear these wounds were caused by these same goons. Jack's anger rises. They even stole Thanos' potion. Jack thinks, I knew something was wrong. Thanos says for the 1000th time, please go away. But Jack doesn't budge. He's determined. The potion has been stolen. Now it's my business, Jack shouts. Those guards hiding there come out. But no sound came. Then Jack thought, okay, now I'll beat these insects out myself. Now Jack was fully prepared. In the name of friendship, he was going to protect this future great swordsman. Meanwhile, some information came to light. There are 5 real marquee families in the Thin Kingdom. One of them is House Herman, which controls the eastern region, and the spoiled heir of this house was Dietrich Herman, the kingpin of the gangsters. Dietrich's story was horrific. At 13, he murdered a maid. At 14, he became addicted to drugs. And at 15, he was addicted to debauchery. But because he was Herman's heir, no one could harm him. After joining the academy, his reign ended. There were children from rich families everywhere. Then he decided to target a weak person, Thanos, a common boy without a surname. One day, Dietrich called him and without wasting any time, started beating him. He enjoyed it until the potion in Thanos' pocket broke. The same potion that Jack had given him. Dietrich heard the sound of the glass bottle and in anger started beating him even more. What ordinary man would carry a potion around? Now, back to the present. Jack's eyes were fixed on Dietrich and his gang. He attacked with a stick. Jack easily blocked his attack as if nothing had happened. The next moment, Jack started beating them all. Charlotte and Valentine, standing at a distance, were not surprised. This had become a daily occurrence for them. Thanos stood there, bewildered, wondering what had happened. Jack was a little tired, but satisfied. He felt the need to increase his stamina, but Dietrich still had some energy left in him. He was muttering, I want to tell my family. I'll tell you. Your guards still aren't coming, Jack said calmly, and the hidden guards' hearts began to race. Dietrich was at a loss. He threatened again. Don't mess with my family. Jack wouldn't listen to his nonsense. He rubbed his face on the ground. Even after this, the guards didn't come out. Jack threatened again, saying he would attack for real this time. Then finally, the hidden guards appeared. Jack thought if they had come earlier, all this wouldn't have happened. But now it had happened. Then Thanos. He slowly tells how big a man Jack has beaten. Dietrich could not even tolerate Thanos calling his name. But Jack silenced him with another kick. Then Jack gave the guards a 3-second ultimatum. Why did you hit Thanos? Tell me. But now the time for talking was over. Just then a guard took out his sharp claws and pounced on Jack. Jack dodged him. But then another guard started reciting some mantra. There was shock on Jack's face. He was reciting the most dangerous spell of the 6th circle, mass destruction spell Explosion. Jack thought, he's going to blow up the entire arena. But Jack wasn't empty-handed. He started to cast his mana back with one hand. As soon as he clenched his fist, the guard's spell began to fail, and the next moment, his face was burned by his own explosion. Everything went according to Jack's plan. The second guard rushed to attack again. Jack easily dodged his most ineffective attacks and punched him hard in the stomach. The guard crumpled and fell down, but he drew his dagger and tried to attack again. Jack kicked the dagger away. The guard hadn't even recovered when Jack reached behind him. In one swift motion, he choked him unconscious. The remaining guard, his face torn apart, was stunned. How could a child defeat us? Jack felt the nerve tangled in the guard's body. He laughed. Who had the brains to detonate an explosion in the middle of the academy? The guard mustered up the courage to ask, "How did you stop my spell?" Jack said coldly. "I'll ask the question," Jack asked. "Why did you kill Tanus?" The guard remained silent. But Jack needed answers. He didn't even know. He only knew because Thanos was a commoner who couldn't turn back. Jack said, "Now make up for the nutrition you stole from me." The guard said, "All this fuss over a potion will make House Harmon consider you an enemy." Jack's smile deepened. "I don't care. That potion is worth more to me than all your threats." The original price of the potion was 40 gold. Adding the 5-day delay and interest, Jack calculated the total amount to 5,000 gold. But he knew a mere guard wouldn't pay that much. He put his foot on his back and said, "Come on, let's see the next one." Jack approached Dietrich. His face was white with fear, but Jack wasn't going to beat him now. He was going to rob him of all his possessions. Jack hit the jackpot. He got 3 checks, each for 2,000 gold, and a bag containing 60 gold. Jack thought, "At this rate, I'll be on the Forbes list." Teddick asked in a trembling voice, "Who are you?" Jack put a hand on his head and smiled slightly. "You must have heard the name. I'm Jack." Teddick's eyes widened. "Are you the same Jack from House Valenti and Phone's brother?" Jack thought. "Yes, this same bastard my brother's. He's a friend." Jack wouldn't normally raise his hand on children, but people like Dietrich were an exception. Jack, thrusting his foot into Dietrich's mouth, thought, "Without a family name, he's nothing. A 4th circle mana user who got all his circle mana through transplant surgery. This is a man who gets everything served on a platter and only knows how to crush those who truly work." Jack thinks, it's a good thing this boy is still a child, otherwise something terrible would have happened to him. Then he gives Dietrich his name and address, saying, "If you want to fight again, bring your death papers. But sign it and come back." Fear overwhelms Dietrich and he loses control. Jack now wants to leave and calls out to Charlotte. The offer to Thanos is still valid. If he's interested, he can come to the manor. The half-dead chef turns out to be better than expected, so Jack invites Thanos to dinner. But Thanos is confused. He doesn't know what to do. Then Jack remembers that there's a fireworks festival tonight. These fireworks are nothing more than explosion spells that are launched into the sky. Jack's question is, will he attend? This festival is celebrated at the Academy 2 or 4 days before each new session. It's meant to welcome both new and old students. Forgetting the morning beatings, this academy is actually quite prestigious. Many of the kingdom's most prominent officials have graduated from here. Kings, queens, princesses, and even a few dukes. But Jack remembers that in 4 or 5 years, the Thin Kingdom will be completely ruined. In fact, he wants everything to end sooner. Just then, Valentine exclaims, "I'm disgusted." Jack is shocked. Is his master? Did she read his mind? But the comforting thing is that Valentine is talking about the academy. After today's attack, she's saddened that all the supervisors at this academy are merely nominal, whereas this is the place that trains the people who run the kingdom. Valentine founded this academy himself and had already anticipated that something like this would happen one day. The academy's rules state that all students are equal and the academy will stay away from politics. But all of that is now history. Valentine is also troubled by the fact that Jack is still hiding so much. Like, about the Thulan Empire and the Draugrs. Jack understands what she's hinting at and asks, "Do you want to hear the whole story?" But Valentine smiles and says, Let it be. Soon, fireworks begin, filling the sky with light. Celebrations and music rage everywhere. Jack enjoys the peace for a while. Charlotte asks him, "Boss, how did you become such a good fighter?" Jack replies, "You must have killed a lot of people from experience." Charlotte thinks, and she's convinced Jack is no ordinary fighter. It's not a boy. He's from the future or has returned 20 years back. Charlotte's words remind Jack of Ron, who is still in shock at the thought of his imminent death. This is Jack's first time meeting Charlotte. In his previous life, he never visited Anholt or saw Charlotte. In fact, Jack has never seen a vampire outside of Monster Forest. On the day Vivian was killed, Volatus wanted to kill Charlotte as well. This means that in his previous life, Charlotte was killed at the age of 10. Thinking about all this, he asks Charlotte, "Why are you asking all this?" Charlotte hesitates. Then she says, "I want to be a fighter like you." Jack understands that Charlotte has been through a lot. Now she wants to change herself. Jack accepts his offer without hesitation and says, "Your training will start tomorrow." Charlotte is shocked. "So soon," she says. But Jack is serious. If you want to be a fighter, you have to start. The first step will be creating a mana heart. After that, Jack will see whether Charlotte can master magic or combat more. She smiles. "I'll work hard." Jack knows tomorrow will be a busy day. Jack and Charlotte begin training in an empty space near the manor. Charlotte collapses to the ground, exhausted. Jack praises her efforts. Charlotte asks, "Am I a mana user now?" Jack smiles and says, "Yes, of course." He had already noticed that Charlotte was very talented. Her mana sensitivity is extremely high, and she can retain mana very well. It was as if Charlotte was born for this. In just one day, she had mastered the art of mana. She's created her first mana circle. Jack helps her up, but Charlotte is so exhausted that she falls asleep on a bench. Valentine asks, "Will you tell her how big this is?" By the way, creating the first mana circle usually takes 2 or 3 days. Jack admits it's difficult to understand. Jack thinks if the head of the Magician's Tower knew about it, he would have made Charlotte his student. But without Jack's help, it would have taken Charlotte a day. In fact, Jack had created a special mana circle on the ground, which allowed Charlotte to create mana from the air. Jack could draw it. Within that circle, Jack could send all the mana to Charlotte. It sounds simple, but it's not just anyone's cup of tea. Charlotte's hard work made it all possible. Valentine finds it interesting that Jack is so generous to his loved ones. Jack then goes to see Thanos. Thanos was crying, but he flatly refused and wiped his face. Jack sees that his progress is very slow. He suspects Thanos is about to give up. Thanos feels inferior because Charlotte created the mana circle in just 10 hours. He fears that Charlotte might turn out to be just as talented in swordsmanship, but becoming the Continental's greatest swordsman isn't easy. Thanos falls to his knees and sobs. Jack realizes that beneath Thanos' tough exterior lies a fragile inner self. He asks, "Would you give up your dream because of a child?" Jack pats his head and says, "You can achieve this dream, but it won't be easy. Stop crying and never give up." Thanos is amazed that someone believes in him. Jack is the first person who has truly taken him seriously. Everyone used to make fun of him. Jack thinks now he has 2 children living in his house. Thanos extends his hand and thanks Jack. Jack smiles back. Jack says, "Hard work has never failed me. It's because of it that I am the most powerful swordsman on the continent." Yet, he feels sorry for Thanos and secretly wants to encourage him. Just then, a mysterious person arrives. Jack immediately becomes alert. This feeling of being under siege is all too familiar to him. But it's not a pleasant feeling, like an NPC recognizing a hidden enemy. Ready for battle. Thanos is speechless. Jack orders him, "Pick up Charlotte and come to me." Thanos understands the seriousness in his voice and immediately runs. Jack searches for Quintet and Gus. After a while, he finds them all unconscious. Just then, Thanos returns with Charlotte and Valentine and the attackers appear. The mastermind of this attack turns out to be Dietrich, the one who has returned for revenge. Now Jack needs no mercy. He had already said that if we fight again, I will kill you, before the fight even begins. The story is told from Dietrich's perspective. Dietrich was about to become Marquis of the Eastern region. He believed the world was run by power. The power a house possessed became their personal power. Jack was becoming an obstacle in his path, so he saw no logic in eliminating him. However, if he killed Jack, House Esmal and especially Rommel might become angry with him. However, he has an excuse. Jack attacked first, and he has witnesses. This could spark a war between House Hermann and House Veltier. The Pentel Guild, along with Dietrich, Master Bayman has also arrived. No matter how powerful Jack is, Dietrich is confident that a Ninth Circle user will be sufficient. Bayman is given all the information before the attack begins. The target is Jack Whittier, who lives with Charlotte at the manor. Charlotte is creating mana hearts there. Therefore, the target cannot move from the training grounds. Charlotte was admitted to the academy through special procedures and was a fourth-year student at Thanos Academy. An important point was that Charlotte was creating mana hearts and had been in the same location for a long time, which made it clear that she couldn't move from the training ground. This was good news for Dietrich. No matter how talented Charlotte was, Dietrich was sure it would take her at least 2 days to complete the mana heart. Another piece of information was that a cook and 5 servants from House Small were present at the manor. The plan was to quietly render them unconscious to avoid any confrontation with House Small. Everything was going well when a fire suddenly broke out in the Duke's manor. People were busy putting out the fire, and Jack's safety was no longer a priority. Everything had gone according to plan. All was going according to plan. Operation Slay Jack officially began. Dietrich had spent 500,000 gold on the entire operation. Now Jack was bound to die. But then Thanos and Charlotte appeared. They decided to hold off the soldiers to give Jack time to escape. Thanos, trembling, thanked Jack and took the blame in front of everyone. He wished he could pay the price for Jack's safety. Jack admired this courage, but he also found it foolish. Jack felt good that someone would protect him. He's ready to do it, but he knows it's not right. He tells them to back off. I can't put you in danger just because you want to save me. Jack was about to unleash his powers, but Valentine interrupted him. I'll take over now. Dietrich, on the other hand, was astonished that this mysterious doll could move and talk. Before he could say anything, Valentine began to glow in the moonlight. Her light was so bright that everyone's eyes were dazzled. In a moment, she transformed into her true human form. She was the same heroine who had once brought the continent to the top. Returning after 400 years, Dietrich and his entire gang were stunned. Jack welcomed his master as a human. Before Valentine could say anything, Jack suddenly received a powerful uppercut. It certainly hurt, but Jack remembered the moment when he had brought Valentine out of the cave and had disregarded his wishes. Now he was punished. Jack now understood that the next issue was clothing. He directly said to Dietrich, "Give me your coat." Dietrich was taken aback, but seeing the expression on Jack's face, he had to give him the coat. She had to give in. Jack handed the coat to Valentine. She said, "You didn't have to stay locked in the cave." Returning to the world was the right decision. Valentine saw that humans, too, were ultimately creatures filled with desires. She had once considered humans different from demons, but now she understood there was no difference. She looked at Jack and said, "I never made a wrong decision. I just trusted the wrong humans." She admits that the cave was a prison in which she locked herself. Now she tells Jack, "I am your queen now, my disciple." Jack is shocked that she has a disciple. Where is he going? Even though he's an adult now and back in time, Valentine still thinks of him as a child. But Jack felt a strange satisfaction hearing this. Perhaps he was feeling that old connection again. Jack felt good when Valentine called him his disciple. But Valentine immediately reminded everyone that Dietrich had tried to harm his disciple, and now he was ready to destroy him. Dietrich, on the other hand, realized he was in real danger. In a panic, he ordered all his soldiers to attack. But before the soldiers could do anything, Valentine completed his spell. He summoned a giant, skeleton-like monster from the earth. Everyone was stunned by this sight. In the Thulon Empire, a man was drinking wine. Hannes, who was destined to become the Empire's most powerful swordsman, suddenly felt uneasy. Was it my imagination, or was the world really about to end? Some dragons near the Dark Sea had also sensed Solera's movements. They knew it was Valentine's work. One of them was the same dragon on which Valentine had once performed soul restraint. Still, he wondered how a human could live for 400 years. Now the question was, how long did she intend to rule the world? On the battlefield, Valentine's massive skeleton monster screamed. Its scream was so terrifying that it could be heard across the field. Dietrich almost forgot how to speak. He had never seen anything like it. In a moment, soldiers began to disappear as if Thanos had wiped everyone out with the Infinity Stones. Then death came to Dietrich. He realized it was really death. Panicked, he began to bargain. My life. Save it. Take the 50 gold. No one cared. He had wasted 500 gold and was now destined to die. In a flash, he too vanished. All enemies were gone. The giant skeleton door closed, and all was quiet. Valentine turned to Charlotte and Thanos, who had truly seen the final boss. They were both trembling. Valentine placed his hand on their heads. He introduced himself as Charlotte, a noble vampire, and Thanos, a diligent warrior. He said, I am a memory from a bygone era whose disciple is a little foolish. Take care of Jack. Thanos' slow wits were now awakened. Everything you said was true. But Jack isn't stupid. Valentine admitted her mistake without arguing. Jack was surprised. How could Valentine be so tolerant today? He didn't miss the opportunity. He tried to appear a little smart. Valentine glared at him. Shut up. Then he signaled everyone to leave. I need to talk to my apprentice alone. Charlotte and Thanos agreed. As he left, Jack told Charlotte, if you're hungry, there's blood for you at the manor. He instructed Thanos to wake up all the unconscious servants. Then he said goodbye to both of them. Now Jack and Valentine were alone. Valentine had many questions. She remembered something Jack had said while arguing with Brutus in the headmaster's office about the human desire to obtain Amrita from dragon bones and blood. Valentine believed dragon bones and blood were the key to this research. She said humans always wanted to live long and remain young. Scientists of ancient civilizations searched for ways to live for thousands of years. The bones, blood, and cells of dragons, elves, and vampires were all compared. Many experiments were conducted. Some humans became as powerful as aurochs or elves. He became one, but he lived only 510 years longer. This research was 400 years old, but now it was being done again in the Thulon Empire. In just 2 years, they had created a species that lived 30 years longer. Valentine thought he had destroyed everything 400 years ago. He burned all the documents. He killed the scientists and wizards. But the Dragon Lord forgot one thing. Jack told him that the Dragon Lord deliberately gave a dragon to humans to break an old oath. Valentine understood that the Dragon Lords always wanted to interfere with humans, but he didn't know which one. A dragon prototype was created. Jack clarified that all future hybrids could use soul aura. Valentine was astonished to hear this. This meant that the dragon used in the Thulon Empire was the offspring of 2 Dragon Lords. Only they were capable of soul aura. Now, if the 10th Circle Mage and this hybrid were combined, they would create soldiers who could supposedly break the wall. Valentine asked, "What are your plans now?" Jack took a deep breath. "To be honest, I'm not quite ready. The experiment is 2 years away. My goal is to achieve the 5th or 5th in a year, reach the 6th circle, then go to the Thulon Empire and destroy everything.